Okay, guys, we are live. So for those listening at home, welcome to the Dungeon Musings YouTube channel. My name is Kevin Madison, and I will be your friendly... Actually, what am I going to be today? Your friendly keeper? Storyteller? I don't know what to call it in this game. Judge? Game Master. So today we are kicking off a brand new adventure that's going to be a bit of a kludged together hybrid of a couple of games. What we are going to be playing adventure-wise is the Stoker First Blood adventure from Pelgrane Press's excellent Dracula Dossier, Nice Black Agents, Dracula Dossier, Edom Files, which is probably the longest title of any RPG product I've purchased. The Edom, this is part of their Nice Black Agents line of books, particularly their Dracula Dossier books, which this is the signature book for this. This is a part of an improvised campaign, an improvised mega campaign that uses that particular system. Now, for me, I'm actually not a huge fan. Whoop, hold on, let me shut myself up here. I'm actually not a huge fan of the Nice Black Agent system. At least it's not my go-to system. But what is something that I am very interested in trying out is Modiphius Entertainment's Kult Divinity Lost role-playing game. Now, for those who are unfamiliar with Kult, I think it's the 4th edition of this game, and this is its first foray into the area of what would be considered a story game. So this is closer to the Powered by the Apocalypse or Blades in the Dark style dungeon world sort of games, as opposed to a more traditional game, which is regular listeners or regular viewers will know that we don't really run a lot of these story games. But we recently had last year a single session running, actually from Modiphius as well, and Son of Oak Studios, City of Mist, which was a shit ton of fun to run, which led me to purchase this game. And for this one, the reason we're not just playing Kult is because I'm not as enamored of the setting for Kult, but the system seems really, really, really cool. So we are taking the system from Kult, modifying it just as a scooch to fit up with this kind of more high-action kind of setting for Nice Black Agents, and pairing it up with Stoker First Blood. So we bring you today Kult Dracula Dossier Stoker First Blood. And my intrepid agents/investigators today are the stars of this campaign. So, guys, why don't we go through, give us an idea of who you are, and who are you playing today? So first up is Sean.
Hi, my name's Sean. I am playing Mr. Archibald Forbes, age 39. He is a British journalist, son of a Scottish clergyman, and intrepid investigator, strong believer in the press, and he's good to go.
Okay. So each of your character sheets, you guys will know, also has a drive on them. What we're going to do at the end of each session is we're going to figure out if you've had your drive come into play in the session, then you will get an XP point for it. So, but we do need to point to a point where you said, this is where I did this for. This is the show don't tell way of rewarding experience points. So you gave me an opportunity to point that out there, Sean. Nice. Next up is Arlen.
All right, I'm Arlen, and I'm playing Colonel Frederick Burnaby. Or did the British say Colonel differently? I don't remember.
Yep.
Okay.
Colonel? No.
Well, anyway.
Lieutenant is who you're thinking of. Lieutenant is pronounced.
Yeah, Lieutenant, I know that they say differently. Anyway, he's been a cavalry officer for a number of years, and has been a war correspondent in the Sudan, traveled through Russia illegally, all sorts of adventures, and is currently in Istanbul serving as a representative of the British Red Cross organization, which is a cover for his work for the British Foreign Office.
Yes. You see, Colonel Burnaby is a player in the Great Game, the espionage and intrigue in 19th century Europe. Which gives me an opportunity to talk about our setting. So our setting is, as you say, going to be starting in Istanbul, aka Constantinople, and the year is 1877. Next up is James.
All right, I'm Armin Vanbury, a Hungarian Jew who's with a talent for languages. He traveled to Constantinople as a young man to be a tutor and a translator, and became an expert on Ottoman histories. So when he was 29, he disguised himself as a Muslim and traveled throughout Persia and Central Asia for nearly 3 years, and his resulting book was a great success, and he became professor at the Royal University of Pest. And so he's also made a load of friends with correspondents in a British society, because my English language version of the book on Amazon was a huge success as well. And now I've been approached by the British Foreign Office to help counter Russian influence in Central Asia.
Yes. That's another interesting point that you brought up there too. This is part of the great game is these great empires in this period that we're playing in. This is the time when it is empires: the French, British, German, the fledgling German, Russian Empire, and the Ottoman Empire, also known as the sick man of Europe, for them jockeying against each other. And one of the most relevant recent bits of news was last year in 1876, when there was an uprising in Bulgaria. There was a Bulgarian uprising by largely Christians who were living there to try and throw off the yoke of the Ottoman Empire, which was brutally suppressed, and the British papers were full of news of a massacre, apparently by the Sultanate forces of Christians. So the problem back home right now is that while Russia is beginning to make moves to try and seize Constantinople, trying to take out the sick man of Europe, without popular support back home, it is difficult to credibly leverage a British threat of, if you invade the Ottoman Empire, then we will respond. Particularly when everyone thinks that at this point, at least the British public seems to have the sentiment that it's all savages down there, so, whatever happens to them, let them be damned. The difficulty with that, of course, is that the Russians gain access to Constantinople and the free passage through the Dardanelles. That means they have their navy will have free access to the Mediterranean, to Gibraltar, to Greece, to everywhere else, and that is not in British interests. And that is one of the reasons why, Colonel Burnaby, you are in Constantinople, is to try and find a way to change that, to find someone. Go ahead.
I'll add, to be fair to the Russians, the British have been eating away at the edges of the Ottoman Empire too.
Oh yeah, hold on.
Right.
No. We don't need to worry about history. This is not a history lesson here.
Okay.
This is it. We need to focus only on what's actually going on for the thing. I understand your desire to talk about more of the historical context, but that's not what the game is. The game is about this. Yeah. So
Okay.
So that's where we are.
Me getting a scoop for the press on this whole atrocity.
Well, the atrocity is already widely known, but you may actually there is an agent in the Ottoman government who is suggesting an even juicier scoop, and something that Colonel Burnaby may be quite happy for you to bring back home. And last but not least is Jeffrey.
Hey everybody, I'm Jeff, and today I'm going to be playing Major George Stoker, who is actually a medical doctor. And amazingly, he's the youngest of the crew at 23, but he is blessed with both high intelligence and high testosterone. He is a adventurer and a do-gooder, and he works for the British Army. He's basically just started doing medical work for them. And he's done a little bit in Turkey, and he basically is trying to live up to the legacy of his family, and especially his oldest brother, who, although only 10 years older than me, is already what is it? The chair of anatomy at the Royal College of Surgeons in Dublin. So he's sort of got this family history. And our family motto is whatever is true and honorable.
You also have an older brother, but he's a theater critic, so really, why do we need to talk about him?
Oh, he's like the unspoken brother.
Well, it's just he's not really important.
Yeah.
I mean, in a couple of years, he may have some fame, But for now, it's, your eldest brother is the one who is the most famous, and you're trying to live up to his reputation, or his achievements, I should say.
Oh, and I'm from Dublin.
Yeah. Okay. So then, guys, where are... the one thing I want to talk about as well is the relationships. One of the things that Kult tracks as well, too, is relationships between the different characters. This can be important if you're like, some foul thing dupes you into trying to harm one of your allies, or, an opportunity to consult with someone and try and regain their stability, which is the way the game models kind of like... what do you call it? Model sanity. So what I'd like you guys to do is figure... Let's see here. Let's see here. I'd like you each to pick one other character, and you will have a +1 relationship with them. So who do we think has... I can see, or could see, Vanberry and Forbes having met before, given their sort of backstory. I can see Stoker potentially looking up to Burnaby, given that he's a, a stalwart agent of the British Empire. He also may look fondly on Forbes. His brother's a journalist, albeit a theater critic. So he may look up to him as well, too. Vanberry may, have... some way of, looking up to the amount of time that Burnaby has spent abroad as a man who, a traveling, I guess, agent of the British Empire. Forbes as well, too, for that matter. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I'll go with Forbes. Makes sense.
Forbes is your +1 relationship? Okay. And Forbes, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, it seemed like, let's see, the two right off the top of my head I can think of, I could go the same direction, or I am a 10-year war veteran.
Yep.
So there's a possibility of the Colonel.
Yep.
And you said this is a +1? This is a
+1 relationship, yes. What this will do is when you make your... when you make certain moves, you'll make it's 2d10 plus you'd add that to that as a positive modifier to your relationship.
I mean, I think I'd probably look up to the Colonel.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. And Burnaby, what are you thinking?
Well, I was thinking more likely Forbes or Stoker, obviously, because they're both British agents. I was leaning towards
Stoker's
Forbes.
actually... He's an agent in the sense of...
Or they're both British.
British, okay, yeah.
Figures, yeah. They're not technically agents. They're going to be involved.
Yeah.
Because I'm going to make them be involved.
Yeah, and then Stoker will actually be a... Dr. Stoker would be a... like a... What do you call it? Someone who works for you. In fact, not an employee, but because he's going to work with the Red Crescent, and you, I'm guessing, rank higher in the Red Crescent organization, that may be another way of, where the connection comes from.
Well, then why don't I pick Stoker?
Okay. And Jeff, what do you think? What does Dr. Stoker think here?
Yeah.
Well, I guess does Stoker introduce? He's listed in the book as, because these are all pre-gens from the Stoker First Blood adventure. Does he refer to himself as Major Stoker or Dr. Stoker?
I think Dr. Stoker.
Okay.
I think he's more... he more thinks of himself as a doctor first and a soldier second.
Okay.
I was leaning towards actually looking up to Archibald Forbes.
Okay.
I was kind of thinking that maybe him and my brother do actually know each other, and that's sort of how I know him. And but I look up to him because he's doing important journalistic work as opposed to my brother, the theater critic.
Okay. Okay. So then that's our relationship. So let's keep those in mind, guys. I think where our session will start then is in Constantinople. So you can see this is a photograph from around the period, from around 1877. This is roughly a year after the massacre or the events of the Bulgarian uprising. And what you guys, where our scene will open. Oh, first off, we've got Mr. Forbes, one of your advantages, so each of the characters has, in addition to having access to the general moves that every character gets, in Kult you pick a number of advantages, which are basically, they're kind of like feats, but they're where it gives you access to specific moves that only a character with that ability has. So let's see here, your move that you roll at the start of each session is Authority. You're an academic authority in your field and a well-known name in newspapers, debate shows, and scientific journals. At the beginning of each game session, roll Charisma. So go ahead and give us a Charisma roll.
All right.
Okay. Ooh, 5. That is not good. Okay, so during this game session, you may choose one option, and you can see the list of options underneath your authority advantage. You may choose one option, but you also attract unwanted attention, like stalkers, potential adversaries, competitors, or hostile forces. The GM makes a move for them at some point during the session.
Very good.
Okay, so your options are, let's see here. So influence is someone who's heard of your authority in your academic field, as if you had rolled 15 or higher. You can gain access to universities' resources, such as their facilities, researchers, or scientific archives. You can make a statement about something or someone in mass media, or you can gain access to people or places under the pretense of engaging in your research or studies.
Let's go with...
And this is this is something you bank.
You don't have to choose it right now, right?
Oh, you don't? You have to choose it now?
Yeah, during the game session, choose one option.
Okay, so not now, though.
No, you don't have to right now. No.
Oh, okay.
So it is, we know that you got that banked, and I've got access to a move. So what I'll do...
Excellent.
What am I going to do? I'm going to put... yeah, they call it a hold, I think, in this game, is where it's basically my way of banking things that I can do to fuck with you guys in the course of the game. Although, of course, this is a story game, so it's not quite as adversarial, or it's not supposed to be as adversarial as other games are. But I mean, you and I all know that I don't really run adversarial games as much anyway. If I wanted to kill you guys, I could kill all of you. So, all right, so let's talk about where we're starting off here. So the game is starting off in Constantinople, and let's take a look at just I got a couple handouts for you guys to get you kind of get you in the Constantinople state of mind here. So this here is one. Oop, there we go. It's the Galata Bridge. You have another perspective. So remember that Constantinople or Istanbul is on two different sides of the it's not the Dardanelles. I can't remember what the body of water is called. The Straits of whatever. And here are the streets. Now, the thing about Constantinople at this period is that it is very much a half step in the Western world, and then the rest of itself very firmly in the Islamic kind of Middle Eastern world. This is certainly more advanced and more developed than, say, Egypt or anywhere in Egypt or most anywhere else in the Middle East at the time. But it it definitely has its sort of you would not think yourself in one of the European capitals. There's a And I mean, obviously, this is coming from a colonialist perspective, but the comments of I think it's Florence Nightingale when she was traveling there. They set up a hospital in there too. There are some ways where the Sultan has made for a very Western and advanced, technologically, incorporating modern things like sanitation systems and whatnot, but also other ways where it's been very, very not backwards, but very, very, very much the previous century's worlds. Where our heroes begin is to meet up with Burnaby. You have a meeting in a cafe with a man named Osman Hamdi Bey, and you know Osman Hamdi Bey from before. I'll show you a picture of Mr. Bey. So this is... what Osman looks like. Osman is a functionary within the Sultanates or the Ottoman government apparatus, and he's also part of, I think you know this, Frederick, or Colonel, because you're kind of keeping your finger on the pulse of developments here. He's part of the Young Turks movement. At this point, it is still a sultanate, but there is some political agitation to see the sultanate transform into a democracy, or at least something closer to a Western-style, secular government. Because of that, while Bey is a capable part of the Ottoman apparatus, he has to be very careful because of his political associations and because of his political beliefs. He is, however, it speaks to his value as an agent of the Ottoman Empire that he's still kept as part of it in spite of his political leanings. I think that with you probably is Dr. Stoker, because you have met. What do you think you've told Dr. Stoker? What you know in broad strokes, Colonel, is that the let's see here, let's do this. Let's just think of this in terms of story moves, because it's a story game. It's not really so much intended for me to be just sitting and doling out stuff. You guys can use the moves that you have access to try and drive things forward. So let's just use this as an example. I'm kind of hand holding you through this right now. But let's say that that Bey wanted to access you, or wanted to speak to you. What do you think that Burnaby would do, Arlen? Would he? And this is, I know this sounds very simplistic, but I mean, would he look into him, through his contacts, through just asking around? How do you think he would?
Well, I imagine that Burnaby, because he's fairly highly placed, has a fair bit of kind of resources to draw upon, so he doesn't have to go skulking in back alleys and whispering to people, "Hey, do you know about this guy?"
Yeah.
He can pull out the file on him or something. And
so let's talk about this in terms of the moves here. So there's two moves I can think of here that I'm in Kult moves number 1, guys. So I'll show you these here. The two ones I'm thinking of here is you could, in theory, have read a person when you met him, or you could investigate. So you could have, when you first met him, you could have tried to get a read on him, or you could have afterwards sent, like you say, draw on your networks. Now, if you happen to have an advantage that allows you to do something else as well, too, you're free to do that. But what do you think?
So I don't think I have any advantages. It looks like from his stats that Burnaby is more of a read-a-person kind of guy.
Okay. Yeah, he wants to see a guy in the eye and
Yeah.
Okay, so why don't you give us a read-a-person move roll here? Let's see how...
All right.
Nice. So in this game, you roll 2d10 and you add your relevant attribute, and then if there's any other modifiers that go in. The tiers are, if you roll 9 or less, there's one result, like what Sean got at the outset of the game. If you roll 10 to 14, you get a middling result. And you roll 15 or higher, you get a free and clear success. So what this means then, when you read a person on a success, you can ask me questions about the character at any time during the scene while in conversation. So you can ask me 2 questions, and the questions are listed on there.
Okay, I'd like to say maybe part of the reason he brought Dr. Stoker is he got me to investigate him before the meeting. And so right before we're going in, we're in a little cafe or whatever, and I'm handing him this sort of report that I've prepared about him.
Yes. So that's how you would have gotten that info dump that I gave you about him, about where he fits in the organization.
Yeah.
So that's so let's say, but hold on, let's make a roll. We're gonna make a roll for you too, George. But first, let's deal with the actual meeting when you met with Bey at the first time. And I think you met him at one of these colonial kind of soirees. It's some big thing that was going on, and I think that Bey was actually with Mr. Van Barry at the time. Mr. Van Barry, given his sort of, I think, let's say all of you guys were there. Because given the sort of, the busy man about town kind of status that both Forbes and Vanbury, you kind of have to be running certain social circles to keep employed. You guys were
Absolutely.
at this shindig as well too. Stoker, you were there as kind of a junior. You know, you've just arrived, and this was you sort of getting used to what the party is like. And it's a bunch of it's a bunch of Islamic people. Some dressed in very traditional kind of wear, and then others dressed in traditional Western kind of wear with those signature kind of red caps. The kafia? No, that's not kafia. It's a fez.
Fez.
Yeah, that Bay is or Osman Bay is wearing in this. So you met up with this guy, and then he introduces himself as an agent of the Sultanate, a bureaucrat, and he says, "Mr. Burnaby, I understand that you will be serving with the newly formed Red Crescent organization."
That's about right. Certainly that's the plan, especially if things go sour with, I don't remember who the Tsar is at this point, but I'd probably call him like Uncle something, like...
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Russians, they are rapacious conquerors and look only for excuses. That in mind, Colonel, I do have something that I would like to speak to you about. I take it that you are familiar with the Sublime Porte, and you are quite familiar with that, Colonel, because at this time, the Sublime Porte is the name given to the way of accessing basically the Sultanates or the Ottoman bureaucracy through a specific gate. That has been, it's the gate through which all foreign kind of transactions and whatnot will be going through. You are familiar with the Sublime Porte?
Of course.
Call on me tomorrow afternoon. I have a matter that I think I would care to discuss with you. Now, before he leaves, let's go back to your move here. What are your questions about this guy?
Okay, looking through the questions.
And you can go beyond that as well, too. We'll kind of decide whether there's anything. And then if any of you other guys want to jump in on something as well, too, please feel free to.
Well, let's start with just one from the list. What do you wish I would do? What does Osman Bey want?
He wants your help, and by your help I mean the Foreign Office's help. If a Ottoman bureaucrat has come up to you like this, he wants something from you. And by you, I mean, like, he knows that he wants to get word back to the Foreign Office and get the assistance of that. The Ottomans are, at this point, quite desperate. They certainly, they are not capable, really, of holding off the Russians on their own.
Yep.
Do you have another question?
I don't think I do.
I'll let you bank that if you want.
Maybe... Yeah, let's bank it, and maybe I can ask another question when we meet him next.
So he walks away from you guys, back in to join the rest of the dilettantes sort of at this party. There's polite conversation going on in a bunch of different places. The French ambassador is here. The Russian ambassador is here. And Dr. Stoker, how is it that you come to be tasked with investigating this? What do you think? Like, you may have been there as well too and overheard this.
Yeah, maybe I was standing beside or close by, not necessarily right there.
Yeah, and Burnaby might kind of gesture for you to come over and say, I'd like you to investigate our friend Mr. Bay.
What would I know? Like, maybe I have some...
What were you thinking of there, Jeff? What were you, in terms of getting him to get the material? Were you thinking, like, prepared? Let's visiting a location. Were you thinking of calling in some favors from your elite education, or just investigating in general?
I mean, I was just going to investigate, but maybe I actually know someone in the area who I could speak to about it.
Sure. So if you're going
it's
to...
sort of more of a gain. The results for that don't really help us, though. I think it would be more like just a general investigation.
Sure, okay. So why don't you go ahead and give us an investigate check. Let's see what happens here.
Okay,
So
there's no actual investigate button, right?
No, it'll be under reason.
Under reason.
Yeah, and I don't think your occupation is necessarily going to help here. Bosphorus. Thanks,
okay.
James. Wow.
Ooh,
15.
Nice.
So then you may ask me 2 questions about this. So first off, you get all direct leads. So the other information that I told you about him being part of the Young Turks, you know, and sort of the consequence or the conclusions you can draw with his competency given his membership in this sort of this organization that the Sultan does not care for. It must mean he's an important person in
right.
you know, in the government. But you have 2 other questions. You see, there's other questions listed under investigate.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with first question is sort of what is my gut feeling about what I'm investing about him. I guess would be the.
So I think that one of the things that you have gathered, well, look, do you think that you have sussed out that Colonel Burnaby is more than he appears? Is more than just the head of the Red Crescent, or running the Red Crescent?
No, I don't think so. I don't think I've clued into that yet.
Okay.
I would say, to me, he's just my boss, right?
So I think your gut about Bay is he strikes you, I think, as eminently capable. Like he moves with the kind of confidence of someone who has, you know, knows precisely where he is, knows precisely where he needs to be, and knows like he's the kind of person who knows everyone in the room. When you saw him walking away, you know, he seemed to stop and talk to everyone, you know, very briefly on the way out as kind of a polite, hey, remember me kind of thing, and then he left. And when you ask around, I think that his name is fairly familiar to a lot of the people in the like the British social circles that you are in, which you run.
So he seems to know everyone. He's extremely confident. Okay, then is there anything weird about him?
Anything weird about him? The fact. Okay, so the fact
like that I find, yeah.
If he's asking something of Colonel Burnaby, the state, then the Ottoman state, may be requesting something of either Burnaby personally or the Red Crescent organization. So, you know, if you're being sent off to, say, you know, the front, like near across the Balkan Mountains into the sort of the front where the Russians are coming in, maybe the state, maybe they may know something that you don't. Maybe there's been a change or development in the coming war.
Something. Okay.
Yeah. So one of the things.
So after my meeting, I would sort of share that with Frederick.
Sure. Well, that would have probably happened when you went out and asked around about this guy.
Oh, that would have been part of my report. Yeah,
so
right.
Back in this party, let's say, where do you think Mr. Van Barry? Where do we see Mr. Van Barry talking to someone, James? When Mr. Bay is going to walk up to him.
I'll be just getting a cup of coffee off the bench.
Okay.
At the side, and just having stopped.
So you feel a hand on the kind of like the mid part of your your upper back, and you turn and there's a smile from Osman Hamdi Bey, and he says, "Mr. Vanbury, a pleasure to see you again. Are you enjoying yourself at the party?"
Very well, very well. I was just talking to one of your colleagues. Very well read on, obviously, on your own illustrious history, and he really gave me some excellent pointers. So tomorrow I'm off down to the head library, and he's given me some good pointers there. Now, how can I help you?
There is a matter that the Sultan could require your assistance on. Do you have a moment to talk?
Of course, always.
And he kind of looks around. He says, many ears, many ears. Have you time tomorrow, early afternoon, at the Sublime Porte?
I check in my little diary. Yes, so certainly.
Good. Then perhaps we could speak then. I have, and then I can discuss further what I hope of you. Now, keen listeners will know that he's setting your appointment before everyone else's. Then, tomorrow, Mr. Van Barry, I will instruct my secretary to meet with you then. And do you have any move you want to do before this guy leaves, or you don't have to? But
don't we read a person?
Read a person, great. So why don't you give me, read a person a move, please. So roll plus your intuition.
So do I need to put the modifier in, or it's already there?
The modifier from your stat is already in there. If there was any other modifier, then we would add it in there.
Then I'll do it. Okay.
Yeah. 19. Holy smokes. So you may ask two questions about me. So what do you think?
So is he unusually nervous?
He is. He's not. No. He seems. You would get the impression that he wants to engage you for something. Definitely not nervous. This is a prospect for job, for some kind of engagement. Past experience with Hamdi Bey is that he has a very light touch with respect to he's so charming that you find yourself working for him before you really had a chance to realize. At least so you've heard. I don't think you've necessarily been engaged by him before. Do you have another question? Yeah, two.
He's confident, and do I feel he's on the level? Is he?
Yes.
Is this? Yeah. Okay.
Yes. Yeah. He doesn't seem to be. There's no malice or no ill intent behind what he's asking of you.
Okay.
Okay. Cool. So he says, "Enjoy your evening. I must go. An early appointment. I will see you tomorrow afternoon. Early afternoon." And he turns and leaves. Now, I think what we'll do for Mr. Forbes, what do you think you've been doing at this party?
Mr. Forbes is working on his Scottish accent since I'm horrible at this, but I'm going to try.
Nice.
I have been trying to recognize faces that I can approach for a word because I need information.
Yeah. So I think what you see is Mr. Bey making his way through the crowd, and I think that you at least you certainly recognize him as a fairly important person. And did you just see him talking to Colonel Burnaby?
I'm even wondering if we'd started with my relationship with Burnaby of looking up to him, but it might even work out as well that that perhaps Forbes senses something about Burnaby. So he's an investigator type, right? So his radar is always on. And there's something about Burnaby. Something's not off, but something's like there's more here than meets the eye. And since he's a military man and I'm a military man, I'm just adding that because it kind of dawned on me later.
Here, let's do this. Mm-hmm. Why don't you give us a read a person move? Because you can do this on other players as well, too.
Sweet.
So give us a roll here.
Now, I don't roll like the rest of you roll, but we'll see what happens here.
You were just getting that bad roll out of your system.
There we go. It's better.
13. Okay, so you may ask Arlen one question.
Interesting.
So you can have a conversation with with Colonel Burnaby, and then ask him one question, and he has to answer.
All right. Let me see. My question is, how could I get Burnaby to open up about what he's really about what he's really up to here? How would I get him to open up to me?
I think at the core it would involve having something that Burnaby feels like he can kind of trade you for, if that makes sense, right? That if you have information and he's got information, he can trade the information that he's working with the Foreign Service for whatever you've got.
Cool. Okay.
Okay.
Very good. Excellent. So I'm in the crowd and I recognize Bay. That's like exactly who I'm looking for. So I'm looking for people that in the know.
Okay.
And Osman Hamdi Bay is on the A list.
Okay.
So I wait till he gets settled, or maybe not settled, but
He looks like he's leaving. He's had a couple conversations in here, but as is often the case, these are less social occasions and more a way of continuing the great game.
So I quickly reposition myself at the exit before he can get there.
Sure.
Sort of inauspiciously, and then just gently move into his space so that he bumps me. And I turned around, kind of not hard, but startled, and go, "Oh, Mr. Bay."
Okay. So let's see here. Yeah, that just happens. I was trying to decide if it would be interesting to have it be act under pressure, but I'm not going to worry about that. So he bumper and he turns around.
You're
and he
dying to make a move, Kev.
He says, Mr. Forbes, is it? Oh, this would be a move. It's a player move, not a GM move.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Yes. Delightful. Do you think we've met, Kevin?
I think he's aware of you. Well, hold on. You got your... Let's do this. You have your Notorious
Yes, I do.
thing. When you encounter someone who's likely heard about you, go ahead and give us a charisma roll.
Excellent. Okay.
18. Holy shit.
I found my footing.
So you get your +2 to your next influence against them.
Interesting.
Yeah. So he turns and he says, Mr. Forbes, of course I know you. Of course. What a pleasure to see you here. I did not see you upstairs. Were you engaged otherwise?
I'm always carousing in the area, trying to find out what's about, Mr. Bay.
So I hear. So that ear of yours always close to the ground. Were you leaving, sir? Did you just arrive?
I'm in and out. I'm in and out, depending on meetings I have.
Oh, did you have meetings here then? One of your sources then?
It's casual. It's always casual. People like to talk when things aren't as pressured.
There is a one benefit to be keeping the faith of the prophet. No liquor to loosen my lips.
Indeed. If I had you in my home country, this would be a whole different matter.
No doubt. Perhaps I should visit your Scotland at some point.
It's an open invitation, Mr. Bay.
Very generous of you, sir. Very generous. You must forgive my my rudeness, but I do have another pressing appointment this evening, so I must take my leave of you. Now, out of character, did you want to make a move on this guy at all?
I am going to. I think I'm going to use my authority benefit.
Okay.
On him. So influence someone who has heard of your authority in your academic field.
Nice. As if you rolled a 15 or higher. Okay.
Yes.
So what do you want Mr. Bay to do?
Information. That is the currency of the realm, at least as far as Forbes is concerned. So he definitely wants to cultivate Bay as a contact.
Okay.
And he's going to basically be offering himself as a man who knows what the British wants.
Okay.
So
he stops. He's got an assistant who's dressing him as he gets ready to go, and he stops and kind of thinks. And you see those. He kind of adjusts the glasses that are sitting on the bridge of his nose, and he says, "Really?"
He says, "Yes.
You are free tomorrow afternoon."
I think I can be for you, Mr. Bay.
Excellent. Then later tomorrow afternoon. My secretary will leave word. You're still staying at the International?
Indeed.
I will have word left with you there. We will speak tomorrow.
I look forward to it, Mr. Bay.
And I as well. He nods towards you, and he turns, and there's suddenly like a bunch of attachés and whatnot who are with him as he leaves. And he says, I will see you tomorrow, Mr. Forbes.
Indeed.
He leaves. So then, we actually, I'm not going to have that cafe scene. Then we will, unless there's anything else you guys want to do in this scene in the, at this dinner party, or this cocktail party, what we can do is we can fast forward to the next day. So you guys have made your way through, we see Colonel Burnaby and Dr. Stoker arrive at the Sublime Porte. And as you guys are walking down, you can see coming from sort of the other direction through the sprawling, or the teeming masses that make up the streets of Istanbul, you actually see someone you recognize, and that's Archibald Forbes. And he seems to be heading for the Sublime Porte as well, too. Which of the... And I think at this point is where, Dr. Stoker, you have just finished... You're finishing telling up Colonel Burnaby about what you learned.
Yeah, okay.
And I think, Burnaby, you're the one who's most likely to recognize Forbes. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, it seems right.
Okay. So you see Forbes, and Forbes, you see Burnaby, and what happens next, guys?
I think I raise a hand to the colonel. Is a colonel's not in uniform? Would he be in any kind of uniform?
Not today, I don't think.
Not today.
Because I think he is. Is he retired? Let's see here.
I don't think he's still a member of the...
No, he's a representative of the Stafford House Committee, the British Red Cross organization.
Gotcha.
So, whereas... Yeah, and actually Stoker wouldn't be in uniform either. He's been transferred.
Right, he's already part of the Red Crescent.
Yeah.
Well, I definitely, George would recognize Mr. Forbes.
Yeah, definitely. Oh, right, yeah, because, yeah.
Yeah, he would call out to him for sure.
Okay.
Dr. Stoker. It's good to see you in this foreign lands, a familiar face.
Nice.
Definitely, great to see you.
I'm going to warm up on this accent. It's going to take a while. But
It's getting the tongue used to it, that's all.
At this point, I'm all over the place. I'm British, I'm whatever.
No problem. I appreciate the effort. So...
I don't want to insult any of our UK.
I know. So I'm practicing it. Dr. Stoker, what are you doing here at this auspicious port?
I'm here working for the Red Crescent.
Oh, excellent. Good to hear.
This is my boss here. Have you met?
Colonel Burnaby, I think we have.
Colonel Burnaby.
Pleasure to meet you again, sir.
Yeah, a fellow cavalryman.
Indeed. The Royal Dragoons think highly of you, as you're aware.
So it's unusual to run into other, individuals heading into the Sublime Porte at the same, other Westerners heading at the same time. Do you inquire as to why you guys are?
Yeah. Do you have business with the Ottoman government?
Well, I don't know if I'd call it business. It's just I try to keep my ear to the ground so that I can pay the rent and send in my reports and find the truth. How about yourself, Colonel? How do you find yourself so far from home?
Oh, we're preparing for whatever it is that the Tsar may have planned for the Near East.
What everyone wants to know. Good to hear you're on the case.
So you would know Forbes as well, just as a reminder that the case to be made back home is pretty tough at this point because the British public thinks that the Sultanate is, and in particular the more sensational publications in the UK are quite happy to play up with cartoons and whatnot, the idea of the Sultan slaughtering Christians who are standing up against him.
It strikes me, Colonel, it doesn't take long to be here that it's not the savagery we're meant to believe. Seems fairly cosmopolitan to me, despite obviously the heavy religious overtones. What's your thoughts?
Oh, there's definitely parts of the Empire that are far more savage than here, friend.
Indeed.
So, which of you guys is making the move to go into the Sublime Porte first? Or, yeah.
I think Forbes is going to hang back because he'd prefer to see rather than be seen. He wants to see what's going on, so he's going to he's going to wait to see if these gentlemen engage.
Okay.
Yeah.
George would open the door for Colonel.
So, well, you step in, and there's actually an Ottoman functionary. There's a soldier who would open the door. Gesture, they open the door for you, and you guys are free to go in. It's probably about maybe 3 or 4 minutes before you guys realize that you're actually both heading to Osman Hamdi Bey's office. And when you guys reach there, there's this whole part, the Sublime Porte, leads into basically the part of the Ottoman bureaucracy that deals with many of the ministers. So it's just like this fucking chaotic mess of people running all over, young, men all dressed in kind of suits and whatnot, who are, with many of them wearing the signature fezzes, running around. And when you reach Mr. Bey's office, there is a young man who is working as the... actually, hold on. He's part of the Young Turks, so I think it's actually a woman. Because they are a fairly... from what I remember, the Young Turks are fairly egalitarian. So she gets up, and you're a little, surprised that there a lot of the women that you have encountered wear much more modest clothing. This woman seems to wear a something but like what a hold on, I'm trying to think here. I think I'm being a little anachronistic here. I don't really matter. See, it's a guy again. So the guy gets up and he says, Mr. Forbes, Colonel Burnaby, Dr. Stoker, Mr. Bey is expecting you. And he walks over. And do you guys think you are early or you're on time for the meeting?
Forbes is definitely early because he wants to see what's going on. Get the lay of the land, who's here, who are some faces he can talk to afterwards.
Sure. So the secretary opens the door to Bey's office, and Bey's office is a cramped thing that is just full of books and reports and papers and whatnot. And you can see that Bey is standing at a side table, and he is talking to a man that you guys can tell me whether you recognize or who recognizes him, but it's Armin Vanberry. And Bey is pointing at a map, and he looks up and he says, "Oh, good, you are all here. Please come in. Coffee, yes?"
"Yes, thank you."
And he gestures to, and the secretary kind of nods, closes the door behind him, and he says, "Welcome. So Mr. Forbes, Colonel Burnaby, Dr. Stoker, allow me to introduce you to Mr. Armin Vanberry. Mr. Vanberry is a brilliant scholar of Islamic history and Ottoman history in particular, and he knows these our people and these lands quite well. Is that not correct, Mr. Vanberry?"
It absolutely is. I do consider myself something of an aficionado and expert on some tracts.
So which of you guys do you think knows Vanberry, or how do you guys think you're... I think Forbes for sure would recognize him, maybe, as part of the academic kind of elite.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I think Burnaby has, his book on the shelf. It's been skimmed once, and that's about it.
Okay.
Because he's got too many things to read,
Sure.
I'm sure, to keep track of everything.
Okay.
So, maybe recognize the name, but not have any personal contact with him yet.
Okay. So what happens then, guys? Between your characters.
Mr. Vanberg, go ahead.
Yeah, offer to shake hands and say, Vanbury, I'm afraid I'm not as familiar with your work as I'd hoped to be, but it's good to know that we've got good to have such an esteemed scholar in our company at the very least.
Oh, why, thank you. At some time, maybe I can offer you a copy of my latest book.
Mr. Vanberry, I'm a fan. I would hope to go deep into some of these Turkish coffees with you and discuss your thoughts on the area. What you think's developing?
Oh, absolutely. We should have a coffee sometime. Please, I know several coffee shops in this district. So very good.
Excellent. I could use some advice on those as well.
Okay. Dr. Stoker?
I don't think he's like as into this. He's just thinking more like this is a good contact, but he's not. I don't know if
Sure.
he's not a fan of the historical writings.
What Mr. Stoker does then is he looks down, and you can see the map that sits on the desk. And the map is of the border between Turkey and Bulgaria. Now, you know that the most recent the insurrection from last year and the atrocity or the massacre that has led to the kind of the massive loss of support, or at least the vilifying of the Ottoman Empire in the British press, it's from Bulgaria. It's curious that they would be showing or displaying this. And then the Mr. Bay, I guess, he catches your eye looking down, and he says, Dr. Stoker, I did ask around about you. You have been, you're part of the Red Crescent now. Is that right?
That's correct.
It's good. Good to see. And he kind of, like with a knowing look back at Colonel Burnaby. Good to see that you are assisting the Colonel in all of his works. Now, and then at that point, the secretary brings the bitter coffee in for you all. It's poured for each of you, and you all sit down at kind of the sitting area. It's a very cramped office, but he does his best to try and provide a civilized, kind of civilized in the British Empire, sense of welcoming. And he says, "Now, gentlemen, if I may, Mr. Vanbury and I have already discussed this matter, but may we speak frankly?" And he's addressing this to you, Colonel.
That seems that would be best.
Then, allow me to spare us some... and he after his coffee, sparks up this Turkish cigarette, and it is a very acrid smell to it. And he says this: "It is agreed that the Russians are mobilizing in Romania for an attack on the Ottoman Empire, something that the Tsar is stylizing as a modern-day crusade. Yes?"
Certainly, we, from here to London, are in agreement with that.
And I trust that we would agree that my country's need for British support in the case of war is high, given the status of our war preparations. And he is being very frank with you, Colonel.
Yep. I think we can agree on that, too.
This is consistent with what you've heard as well, Mr. Forbes.
Okay.
And, Mr. Forbes, am I correct in assessing that the climate of the British public opinion is very much given against the Ottoman Empire, given reports of the atrocities, as your press has deemed it, by Turkish soldiers in suppressing a violent civil insurrection last year?
I'm afraid you're correct, Mr. Bay. It's certainly not my publication, but the majority in the city have reported just that.
I trust that we would all agree, and as he gestures, he's stroking his beard, and his cigarette's having smoke that's drifting up and is slowly being dispersed by this lazy fan that spins above him. Having a Russian fleet in the Black Sea does little to assist anyone. Would we agree on that?
We've been thinking that since before I joined up.
Then there is something that I think may be of benefit to all involved. Word has come to me of a massacre of Turkish civilians in Bulgaria, and the evidence of which is preserved in a town, or outside of a little town called Ternova. And he gets up and kind of gestures on the map to where Ternova is. I have arranged so that there is a prisoner who knows where this cave is, and he can bring you to them. I have arranged for a prisoner to be brought to a convenient place along the path to reach Ternova. Tell me, Mr. Forbes, do you think that if news of a massacre of Turkish Muslims by Christians might serve to better place the events of last year's uprising and assuage the fury that seems to have been whipped up by some in your press against the Ottoman Empire?
It certainly couldn't hurt, Mr. Bay. It couldn't hurt. It's to educate the British public on how difficult part of the world this is with so much going on, and not so one-sided.
So what's going through your mind, Burnaby, because you're kind of always, as an agent of the Foreign Office, your mind's going through the calculus of this. If you're able to sort of offset the the story of Muslims slaughtering Christians was certainly received poorly in the British press. If there was something that would characterize it more properly as just a really unfortunate time when lots of people died, that may give the British the political coverage they need in order to do the backdoor channel, backdoor kind of threats to Russia to credibly say, look, if you fuck around with Constantinople, we're coming. We're getting involved with that.
Yep.
So, the Mr. Bay says what springs to mind is the idea of the value that could come with eyewitness testimony published in your British press about the nature of this atrocity. Do you not think...
Oh, sorry.
No, Mr. Forbes, do you not think that would make for a compelling and interesting story?
Oh, indeed. I'm. It's practically why I'm here.
So I'd heard. Now, Mr. Vanberry here is very well traveled and well seasoned. The Ternova is by no means it is a much more remote and likely to your ears strange location. And actually, this is an opportunity, James, where you actually, if you wanted, you could try and trigger your worldly move.
Yep.
And
Okay.
or advantage, and you could say, well, actually, if you want, I don't want to make it for you, but you actually might know someone local in Ternova.
Let me.
So your worldly advantage, whenever you arrive at a new location in the mundane world, decide whether you've been here before, and if so, name some detail about the place significant to you. Also decide if you met someone there and what you left behind. And I'll tell you whether it's changed since then. I'm fine with you actually knowing someone in Terranova.
Yes, I was thinking I maybe know a doctor there who's done a lot of research locally into the history of the Turks and the invasions.
Well, curiously, Terranova actually at one point was a capital of Bulgaria. So he could be like a medieval scholar of some kind.
Yep.
Okay,
So
great.
That was his hobby, as it were.
Love it. So then he includes that as part of the reason for why you are coming along. He's also fluent in every language that will be spoken by any individual you meet along the way, and has experienced the individual. The prisoner is being held by one of the Bashi Bazook troops. And Vanberry, what you know about the Bashi Bazook, these guys are effectively, let me show you a picture of the Bashi Bazooks. They're technically classified as irregular troops. They are more accurately, at this point, or at least in that region, they're cavalry bandits who have the soft cover of the government to watch out for them. If you think of like the Cossacks, that's very similar to what the Bashi Bazooks are. So if this guy's being held, the prisoner's being held by them, it's going to be rough terrain, rough group, and the Bashi Bazooks will be traveling with you. So, then, Colonel, I obviously, having the news of this massacre come from a Muslim will seem as self-serving. But from a member of the Stafford House Committee and a distinguished journalist such as Mr. Forbes, do you not agree that that might be received in a different light?
Yes, I think it might well be received differently.
Good. Then, have you any questions? Or can I trust that you, with Mr. Vanberry's help, will know best how to investigate this? We, of course, cannot provide any direct assistance from the Sultanate, but we will give you such travel papers as are necessary to make the trip over the mountains and into Bulgaria.
That sounds splendid to me. I'm already packed.
Okay. What say you, Colonel?
How exactly did your government come by the information of the massacre?
The prisoner arrived as... One second here. The prisoner arrived at... Well, hold on here. Let's see. See, there's a move. Hold on. What are we doing
That
here?
move, Kevin.
Yeah, I don't think this guy's going to be... Well, you know, there might be other stuff he's keeping from you. So I think we will use a move. Like, there's... so what it is this will be a part of an investigate check here, I think, Colonel. And what it means, like, you're going to get the basic information, but this will tell us whether there's other stuff on top of that that you can follow up on.
All right.
Okay? So why don't you give us an investigate, and unless there's an advantage you got, so you can trigger. And anyone else can feel free to jump in as well, too, guys.
I think it's just investigate for me.
Okay. So go right ahead. 11. Nice. So you may ask one question. So first off, what he tells you is that this man was actually a soldier, Bashi Bazook himself. And he arrived at the brigade at Osman Bazaar, where a coward who a coward and a deserter. But he, in the course of his wild explanations for what happened and why he found himself so far from his unit, he mentioned that there... this was he was involved in the civil, the insurrection, the Bulgarian uprising. He fled his unit, but in the course of fleeing came across this cave with evidence of a Christian slaughter of Muslims. Coward he may be, we have reason to believe he is telling the truth. So you have one question you can ask me.
How do they know it was Christians who slaughtered them and not like another roving band of the Bashi Bazooks or something like that?
Yeah, the nature of the what he described was half a dozen dead men, all Muslims, their hands bound, their throats cut, and the nature of the conflict. You would know this just as because you're, keep your finger to the pulse of what's going on. The conflict at that time was between Muslims and Christians, so it wouldn't.
So safe assumption.
Very safe assumption that that's
okay.
what. Yeah. Anyone else have any questions? Van Barry, we can also do flashbacks, so you could have asked questions. The reason we didn't do the intro scene is because you could have had. We can just do flashbacks and say that you've asked questions of him or made, if there's any moves you want to attempt or any advantages you want to take advantage of.
Forbes has his notebook out anyway. He has a little notebook he's scribbling in.
Okay.
Is it possible, Mr. Bay, that at some point maybe we could have a word with this coward and deserter?
Well, this is who you are going to meet, sir.
Oh.
You will be meeting the prisoner on your way to Ternova.
Excellent.
He is in the hands of the Bashi Bazook.
Well, it turns out you're miles ahead of me. I'm no surprise, Mr. Bay. No surprise.
I would hope that as an investigator, you might take a few steps ahead, sir.
Once I get there, once I get my feet on the ground.
Any other questions, guys?
Not that George would have.
Okay.
Do you believe that these slaughtered men have any particular notoriety of their own, or were they just Muslims?
I know not, sir.
So not an authority or any, they weren't specially chosen, you don't believe?
I know not, sir.
Very good. Do you have any idea when this slaughter might have happened?
During the uprising, as I understand it.
I see.
A tragic time for all concerned. And he sort of presents that as if he was trying to write a headline.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Forbes will give him a little eyebrow, but he'll scribble it down.
Okay. Then, if no one has any other questions for this, guys, we can then transition out of this scene and talk about the preparations. So, what do you guys do? If there's anything else, we can always flash back to here too. I'm not super fussed with being able to go back and fill in. That is very much in keeping with the Night's Black Agents kind of flashback stuff. So you guys, what do you guys want to do then? I guess, am I correct in thinking that you will undertake this task here on behalf of the, British Empire on Burnaby's part, and to try and get a sensational scoop, Mr. Forbes?
There's no question on Forbes' part. He's all in.
Okay.
He's going to grab his bag.
Okay. Burnaby, what are you thinking?
Yeah, I think we're definitely gonna do this. I'm kind of wondering about how I'm seems like it's probably best to stay in, like, civilian garb and not be an obvious agent of the British Empire.
Definitely not.
Even in my kind of limited capacity as the Red Crescent leader.
If you want to look at the map again, guys, there's the map.
But I'm definitely up for riding through the mountains and going and doing something a little bit crazy.
Okay.
Going into the chaos of Bulgaria.
So, Mr. Vanberry, what are you thinking?
Well, I think there's obviously a big story going on here, and I haven't been in Turnova for a while, and I should go out and check out my sources again.
Okay. And what about you, Dr. Stoker? What do you make of all this?
It's very bizarre, and he's definitely not sure what to make of it, but it seems like a more interesting assignment than what we've had here in Constantinople. So he's interested in getting more work in, maybe making a name for himself here as well, like as far as being a part of something bigger. So
okay. Do you guys do anything between now and when you leave? Are there any other scenes we want to do where you're making moves?
Forbes is going to go to the local telegraph office.
Okay.
And first, he's going to send a message to his home office, his publication home office, and tell them what he's about.
Yep.
Pull them in. Like, I'm going off to this town, blah, 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 what I've found so far. And having reported in with a brief report of what he has so far, just on Constantinople, some background information. He's going to overtip the telegraph clerk.
Yep.
And kind of sidle up to him, get a little friendly, and say, I'm going to be doing some traveling, and I wanted to get your thoughts on the availability of your fine service on various towns, say Turnova. Do you have an office there?
Turnova?
Yes.
Where is Turnova?
It's over the mountains. It's due north.
I mean, north west of here in Bulgaria, in the province of Bulgaria.
Yes, due northwest. Turnova. It's a small town. Do you know the nearest telegraph to there?
Yes. We have a telegraph office there.
Oh, splendid. Because I hate to lose track. My work requires constant contact, you understand.
Of course, Mr. Forbes.
You don't know anyone there that I could use your name, do you?
So what it sounds like you're doing is you are trying to...
Influence?
Yeah, I think you're trying to influence other, right?
That sounds good.
Okay. So unless you've got an advantage that you want to do, I want you to give us an influence other role there.
Is it possible he's heard of me? I don't know if my type or
Yeah, let's do that. Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Give us a notorious roll. So a charisma roll, please.
Sure. Okay.
13. They know of your reputation, and you can decide what they've heard. So what has this person heard about you?
This person has heard that. So it's obvious that I am British, and that. So being sending and receiving messages, he's probably a little more in the know than your average person in the street as messages come across his desk as he sends and receives. And so he's aware that the British are in play in his country and how important this is, kind of the larger strokes. And so a prominent journalist of Forbes's type, he realizes, like, oh, this is someone on the ground, is here thousands of miles away. This is a man who is who has influence. This is an influencer kind of.
Okay. So then I'll give you a +1 to your influence other check or move.
Cool. All right.
Okay.
Excellent. So influence.
So just be charisma, and the modifier is +1. And you just put 1, not a +1, because I think that'll screw up. Nice, 16. Okay.
Nice.
So yeah, he does. He actually has the name of someone. He goes back and checks the. He's quite happy to impress this this very special and important distinguished journalist. So he goes back and gives you the name. So you have the name of someone who actually works in the what do you call it? In the Terranova office.
Telegraph. Nice.
Yeah. So you know someone in the Terranova Telegraph office. And then
if I can't get the news out, it doesn't matter.
Of course, Mr. Forbes. So you turn and leave, and we're going to take our break in a moment here, guys. But what you see, what the viewers would see, is you leave the office, and we see this man with a kind of a long, dark Western-style jacket on, but with a big, Bulgarian-style mustache. Or at least a Caucasian, in the sense of the Caucasus-style mustache, and kind of long hair pulled into a ponytail, with dark eyes, who watches you walk away.
Watches Forbes?
Yeah, and then his eyes dart back towards the office, and he walks into the telegraph office, up to the, the telegraph operator. And the telegraph operator is probably this bespectacled, a little Turkish guy, who turns and he has a grin, having met, the glorious, the impressive Mr. Forbes. He turns back to this guy, and then the grin kind of sinks away as this very grim and serious, hawk-faced man stares at him. And we cut away from that scene. So whatever's happened in the telegraph office, we do not know yet. But let's take we're about a little past halfway point, guys. Let's take our break right now. Let's take Anna Banana outside. I'll be back again to continue your trip. And let me move not only our heroes here. Let's move our players over here, guys.
The journey.
The journey. Right. Journey begins. There we go. Boom.
Sweet.
We'll put our heroes back up here. Oopsies. Get just the top ones. There we go. There we go, guys. Okay, then we will be back in a couple of minutes here, folks.
Cool.
And actually, let me just rearrange some of these things here. And I'm going to change up. Okay, back in a few moments here, folks. All right. Oh, Engel, thank you. Let me know if the music is at a better level right now. I'll turn the music down just a touch. Oh, man. So for those listening at home as well, this is the second time I've run a story. First time I've run this game. Second time I've run a game of this kind of ilk that's a hybrid kind of story and trad game. Well, this is more of a story game, so any fumbles we're having here you'll have to excuse, because this is something relatively new to certainly for me, and I'm not sure about everyone else. But so guys, one thing I want to talk about our preparations as well is any weaponry that you're bringing with you. So 1877, I think that your options are really, a rifle and a revolver. I don't think handguns had not been developed yet, had they?
Like semi-automatic
Yeah.
handguns? I don't think
not
so.
really.
For the purpose of this game, it's not really, it is not super important that you're not modeling specific types of guns. There's just, guns. So the things that I've got in here, you'll notice that there are things like revolver attack in there, and it seems a little loud as well. Turn that down. Okay. And rifle. What these are for, guys, is for when you are doing the inflict violence move. Is that what it's called? Observe a situation, read a person, see through the illusion, influence other, engage in combat is what you're doing. This tells you how much damage the things do, and then it tells you, it abstracts ammunition. So what I'll let you do is I'll let you carry a second backup for ammo, and then if you have opportunities in the story to sort of refresh your ammo, that's fine. You tell me whether you think your character would have like one load for your weapon would be sufficient, or whether they'd carry a second one. Burnaby would be the one who would likely bring, I might argue, an extra one as well, and I'm fine with that. Who has fencing as well? Is that Burnaby?
That's Burnaby.
Okay, so the other one you'll want to look at is the chopping weapon. Oopsies, what are we doing here? Wrong thing. Right here. So yeah, and then you've got a special ability for fencing from when you are involved. Unarmed is also listed under there as well too, but we'll cross. I just wanted to point that out to you, that this is the way that we sort of model the different kinds of weapons in this game. There is a little bit of granularity as to what you can do with them, and you'll notice that like there's different options you can do with some of these weapons. Yeah, so like if momentum, like you're doing 1 damage, and the way damage is managed in this game is abstracted into harm, levels of harm. Creatures have actual, like, not hit points, but or adversaries, I should say, have I can't remember if they call it health or not, but it's
Wounds?
it might be wounds, yeah. And then like your thing inflicts a number of wounds equal to the harm. And then there are also things called gangs. There's like minion rules in this as well too. So you can, if you've got, that's where the slashing thing where you're hitting more than one thing might be beneficial. Now, who has the I think it's Mr. Forbes and Colonel Burnaby have a cavalry background, right?
Yes.
So you will be riding through the Balkan Mountains. You'll be going through the Shipka Pass along the road there. And to give you an idea of what I think, Mr. Vanbury, you've been through there before. This is the kind of terrain that you guys will be moving through. The bottom is the actual Shipka Pass itself. So these are the mountains between Turkey and Bulgaria. As you can imagine, it's going to be some tricky going.
Some rough territory.
Definitely. So what kind of you can decide for yourself what kind of stuff you'd bring with you. If you just bring I know that Stoker, Burnaby, and probably Forbes would bring a sidearm with them at least. If you think there's other stuff your character would bring, please feel free to do that. Mr. Vanberry, you're welcome to bring a sidearm with you as well, though I'm not sure. You can decide whether he's the kind of guy who would bring that.
I think Forbes. Forbes isn't a big firearms guy, but certainly, he's also though. He spends so much time away from home, so he's in these far off lands. I think it makes a lot of sense that he would. He knows he's got to take care of himself.
Yeah,
and so he has a firearm. I think he might even have a short blade, some kind of dagger, some kind of
Yep.
Just pure functionality.
Yep.
As far as a reload, I don't know. I'm on the fence on that.
So
I don't think he'd be a big reload guy. I mean, he is going into the middle of nowhere now, though, so that kind of weighs on me a tad. But
you are full sure. Like, this is almost literally moving into no man's land.
Yeah.
You haven't asked around, so you don't know where the Russians are just yet. That is something like. This is something you could do before you left Constantinople, or Istanbul. You could choose to try and ask around and see what to expect up there.
Yep. In 10 years in the Royal Dragoons, I think going off into the middle of no man's land, I think a reload is reasonable.
Okay. So you got to reload. Mr. Colonel Burnaby, what are you bringing with you?
I think sidearm and a reload, and then I'm imagining my sword is kind of like a full-on cavalry saber,
Yep. Okay. Mr. Vanberry?
I won't bring anything.
Nothing? Okay. And Mr. Stoker? Yep. Or Dr. Stoker?
I'm assuming I have whatever military pistol or whatever I've been issued.
Yeah, you got a revolver as a sidearm?
Okay, yeah, I got a revolver then.
Okay.
I don't think I'd be bringing any special extra weapons.
Okay.
And I think Forbes would have a conversation at some point with Burnaby about trying to find out more about this town before we get there.
Okay. So what are you thinking?
Colonel, I'm usually more familiar with the places I go to.
What I meant was, mechanically, like,
I'm going to break into character, Kevin. Don't dare me.
No, you go ahead and do that. But I want to try and give you guys an opportunity to take advantage of the mechanical thing. So if you guys have an advantage you want to draw on, or if there's a move you want to make beforehand, like, this is, like I said before we went live, like, the thing with these games is the story is much more player driven than me. Like, this is there's a lot more opportunity for you guys to sort of not force, but like direct the story in the direction you want to, and it's an investigative game as well. So you're, if you want to know something about it, I'm not going to offer it to you the way I would in a different style of game.
I think unless one of you guys has an advantage that would come into play about specifically a location advantage, then it looks like investigate would be our best bet here. Mm-hmm. Anyone have a location advantage?
I kind of have a location-ish advantage. Like, I have prepared, but it gets us things like a map and security information and the exact location of something we're after, which I don't know if that really fits our arrival or, like,
The security information sounds interesting. That's kind of...
I can always roll it.
Why don't you give it a run?
Sure.
Okay.
It is roll plus reason.
Okay, so prepared.
Prepared. Oh yeah.
So
I guess
I
guess
reason.
I could just click investigate. It's technically the same, right?
Exactly. Yeah. 17.
Oh, wow.
You guys are killing the dice rolls today. Holy smokes. All right, so prepared.
So I actually get all three options.
Nice.
Yep. Okay, so it turns out, who do you think you would have spoken to from this? Is there someone?
Maybe I know a doctor from the area that I contact.
Yeah, maybe it's someone who from the Red Crescent who is on his way back, and just like spent some time in Ternova. Okay, so here's what I'm going to tell you: is Let's see here. Ternova is an important regional center in that part of Bulgaria. It's set along the banks of a small river and surrounded by rocky wooded hills and cliffs. The ruins of a fortified wall run along a ridgeline looking over a bend in the river at the edge of town. The extent of the Ottoman soldiers that occupy the area are those who occupy a rundown old fortress near a hilltop, but there's little more than a local militia. The road from there, apart from the one that leads across the river, it leads to the town of Sistova, about 64 kilometers away, to the north of the Danube. And Ternova itself is mainly occupied by ethnically Bulgarian Christians, though there are a few Muslims who are Circassian exiles forced out of the Russian Caucasus by the Tsar nearly 15 years earlier. So the two major ethnic groups in Ternova are the Circassians and the Christians, the Bulgarian Christians.
Yeah.
The population of the town is divided along religious and ethnic lines, with the Orthodox Bulgarians outnumbering the Muslim population, many of whom you've heard are actually leaving town in anticipation of a Russian attack. And the town was the capital as well of the Second Bulgarian Kingdom, also known as the Bulgarian Wallachian Empire, which existed between the end of the 12th and the beginning of the 15th century before being conquered by the Ottomans.
Cool.
And what you also hear about is that the Christians that were there, this contact of yours, spoke more to the Christians than they did the Circassians. And for those listening at home, if I'm butchering that name, my apologies. Apparently, the uprising had at least one favorable outcome as far as the Christians are concerned, notwithstanding the massacre. The person who, I guess like the governor or the landlord who ran the kind of the region on behalf of the Sultan, was a guy named Akim Dal. Ekimdal. And Akim Dal was described by the Christians as a tyrant. And they even whispered, because he rolled so well for this, they even whispered that he was responsible for the disappearance of a number of girls and young women from the outlying villages over the years. He died during the uprising, killed by Bulgarian patriots, the Christians describe them. And
wait, sorry, what time in this time period do we have telephones?
No.
Okay.
No.
So this would have been correspondence then?
No, this is, you met a guy.
Okay.
This is what you're getting. He's come back from Ternova.
Oh,
That's
I
why.
see. He's okay. Yeah, I get it.
Yeah, you've met up with this guy who's come back from he served with the Red Crescent. You've met up with him in Constantinople. It's probably someone from med school that you knew.
Yeah.
Or from your days in the army. And this is he's been telling you all about this stuff. And and apparently the Akim Dal is just, they could not say enough horrible things about him. They're certain that the devil has claimed that evil man's soul and carried it back to hell.
Wow.
And what was he in charge of?
He was the potentate, local potentate. He was the governor of Ternova.
Okay. Well, these will be things that I'll be sharing with everyone on the train ride.
Yeah. Okay.
That I've learned.
So that's what you gained, yeah, from your time speaking to your friend from what do you think his name was?
His name was Carl Baker.
Dr. Baker, okay.
And we learn that Dahl is dead. He's
Akim Dal, killed by Bulgarian Christians. Well, not quoting, I was going to quote patriots, but Bulgarian Christians killed him Yeah, during the they said they sent his black soul to hell.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I need to roll or not, but what do I know about like Russian forces on the other side of the Danube?
That would probably be an investigate check
right.
thing, like pressing your contacts at the Foreign Office and asking about the of any contacts you may have in the Ottoman military as well. So go ahead and give us.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Let's do investigate.
Let's see.
Oh, it was time.
Nice, nice. Kev's time to shine. All right.
All right.
So what do we got here? So you first off, you get any direct leads. So the information that you do gain is that they're apparently the Russian forces are approaching the they're approaching the Danube. So they're the region you're going to, like, you're going to want to get there pretty quick if you want to get to Ternova before the Russians get there. And a bunch of Van Barry may, well, no, I mean Van Barry is. He may not cause a problem for, you know, being in the region, but a bunch of other British looky-loos are probably not going to be, even though you're not at war with them. The Russians, you know, may just yeah, I'm not sure you really want to be taken by the Russians. Yeah. So that's, but what you find is, yeah, that their forces seem to be approaching quite soon, and like as few as like maybe 4 or 5 days away from Ternova falling. So, and the downside is you expose yourself to dangers or costs, and I get to make a move. Okay, let's see here. So again, for those listening at home, forgive me for taking my sweet time with this. It's my first time running this. You know what? So, where do you think you you met up with these guys? Are we picturing like some, you know, smoke-filled, like back alley bazaar kind of thing?
To meet up with who? With the party or with?
No, with the your contact from whom you got this information.
Oh yeah, definitely something, you know, kind of like not completely back alley, but it's sort of off the beaten path.
Okay. So you
Is this just you, Burnaby?
just him is in the well, unless he tells me otherwise. Is there anyone else in this scene with you?
I think it's just me because I haven't actually told anybody else that I'm working for the Foreign Office.
Okay.
Although that was going to be one of my, if you're looking for suggestions for what happens, seems like somebody figuring out that I'm working for the Foreign Office would be a good
Okay.
I can make this
downside.
suggestion too, that I think Forbes, possibly to an annoying extent, is typically in the. Oh, get him! Security at work.
She's been so good today. You've been so good, sweetie. What are you doing?
I upset her. My bad.
No, not at all.
I know. Forbes is in the lobby of the
I'm
hotel.
gonna go. Just deal with her. So you guys keep talking with each other. I'll be right.
Yeah.
I was going to propose that Forbes is in the lobby of the hotel because he's just, you know, he work, you know, the international, and he wants to see what's going on. You know, so obviously we're not all glued to our cell phones at this time. So
Right.
he's glued to the coming and goings of the lobby. You know, that's where you go unless you have something else to do. So I was going to suggest he probably sees you leave, perhaps, but you give him the slip. Like, it's kind of annoying, or, you know, maybe, or whatever you think of it. You know, Forbes is a frequent Forbes again. You know, you're here too. You know, this kind of thing.
That sounds good to me.
Yeah. You can give him the quick slip. He's like, curses. Where's the colonel going? This is cool. Cult's been on my list for a long time, so I like these pictures. These pictures are extremely evocative. These are good work,
Yeah, no kidding.
right?
That's very good.
Yes, indeed. So, Kevin, I was suggesting that maybe I would be a little bit of the gum on the bottom of your shoe, in the sense that I'm always trying, I'm like always there, or trying to always be there. And so I'm in the lobby, not having a cell phone to bury my face into. I'm basically burying my face into the comings and goings of the International Hotel lobby, and possibly see the Colonel go by, but he gives me the slip.
Sure.
He knows I'll be there because I'm always
Let's
there.
do this. Actually, no, I like this. So let's you're gonna act, so this is acting under pressure. Acting under pressure is the move that kind of captures, all the general stuff. So this is a coolness check, but I'm going to apply. What is your perception, Burnaby?
My perception is 2.
Is 2, like plus 2?
Plus 2.
Plus 2. Okay, so then you're going to act under pressure, Forbes, and you're going to take a -2 to that roll.
Nice. Okay.
So would you go ahead? I love that, though.
Yeah.
9.
Hey, appropriately so.
There are serious consequences. You make a mistake, or you're exposed to the danger. And I get to make a move. So, between Arlen and Sean, what do you think happens here, guys? So it's clearly Forbes has failed in some way, and you spotted him, Burnaby. Is it maybe in this moment when you've left the contact?
What do you think, Burnaby, of one thought is you could possibly get me in trouble. The way you give me the slip is maybe somehow get me in trouble, like in other words, a spilled cart, or get some constables looking in my direction. The classic scene where you're like, that man has a revolver over there, and I don't know, that'd be kind of serious, but something light, but to tie me up, to get me in trouble, or to.
Well, I was actually thinking, what about kind of after the fact? Like, I give you the slip and then have my meeting, and we kind of exchange a bit of information about the Russians, and then sort of circle back, and I'm not going to come at you with a knife out of a darkened doorway, but just kind of like show up behind you like, Forbes, what exactly are you doing out this time of night?
That sounds good. That's good with me. Colonel, I'm a light sleeper. I can't sleep, so I get up early, and I'm a lobby man. That's summer the shows, summer the boaters. I'm a lobby man. I camp out down there. You know me. I can't get enough of this Turkish coffee.
Okay.
How about you, Colonel? What brings you out?
Oh, business for Queen and Country and all of those things that the politicians are worried about.
Oh, Queen and Country. Indeed. Flying the flag all the way out here. I appreciate you, Colonel. I really do. Can I ask you more specifically, was there anything interesting in your morning?
Anything interesting?
So I'm going to pause it there, guys. This is in a shadier part of Constantinople. This is off the side streets. This is as evening as you've said. I'd like Forbes is the one who's off his kind of off his game right now because he was surprised. Burnaby, would you kindly give me an observe a situation move, please?
Yep. 15.
So, 2 questions. I'm going to give you 2 things. One, you can see that there are 4 men. You're talking to him, and you sort of see that there are 4 men. You look in one direction down the alleyway, and you make eye contact with 2 men who are making their way in your direction, and they've drawn something from their hands. They maybe shivs, daggers, something like that. And you spare a look down the other end of the alleyway of like, oh, maybe I can get out this way. And there are 2 more that you make eye contact. Dark-eyed men. And they're wearing like traditional kind of robes and whatnot, obscuring their face. They're dressed like Muslims. And they are making their way in towards you right now. You could ask me one more question too. So I'm looking at observe a situation. 1.
Yeah. Let me look at it too. Well, seems like obvious would be what can I use to my advantage?
I think that there are. The scene here is still like there still is a bunch of stuff that's stored up in this. There's this is the classic bizarre scene where there's a metal pole, not metal, wooden poles and whatnot, that are have scaffolding above it. There's a bunch of doors along here that are and they lead into some other some other old buildings. But as with much of this place, this is just a really shitty neighborhood. So what we're gonna do, guys, is we are going to drop into a conflict scene here.
Nice.
And the way that the conflict scenes work in this is we sort of let the fiction dictate the order that people take actions. So like what I can do is take an action to have these guys come in and stab you, and then you make a reaction to avoid harm. But I think I will let you. I'm going to let Burnaby make one move before these guys get in and try and stab you guys. So Burnaby, what are you doing? Do you have a move in mind?
Yeah, I think I'm gonna start issuing orders to Forbes and use my officer move.
Nice. So what does the officer move do?
So the officer move, whenever you are in combat with at least one ally by your side, roll plus violence. And then I get edges that I can spend on special abilities.
Nice. So let's see what happens here.
So let me do roll. Where is violence? Violence, engage in combat.
Yep.
Oh,
holy
I'm so
shit.
good at the violent things.
20. Okay, so you get to pick 2 of the edges. And you may spend them at any time during the scene. So, and you spend them to do those things. So, do you have something you want to do right now, or?
So I'm gonna right now give Forbes +2 to his next engage in combat.
Okay. Okay. So then, and do you have you want to bank that other one?
I get 2 more to bank, right? Because I get 3 edges.
Well, you rolled 20. 15 plus is 2 edges.
On my sheet it says 3.
On which sheet?
The one you posted on the Discord.
Get 2. Are you looking under martial arts?
No, I'm looking under officer on the Colonel Frederick Burnaby
Oh, fuck
sheet.
me. Sorry. No. You're right. You're absolutely right. Sorry, I'm looking at the martial arts expert one. I can't read. Reading is key.
Try to squeeze an edge off you there.
Yeah, really.
Jiminy
What a bunch of bullshit. All right, excellent. So then, yes, that's fucking terrific. So you got 2 more edges you can spend. So these guys now come running in, and they seem like this is not back alley stabbers or whatever else, or like robbers. They are intent on you guys passing other people to come in. So right now you have harm coming in on both Burnaby and on Forbes. So what I need each of you guys to do is to each of you give me an avoid harm check.
All right.
And because there's 2 on 1, they do actually count as a gang.
Okay. Is there a modifier?
What it means is you're going against a harm 3 then from these daggers, because they're trying to stab you.
No modifier on the avoid harm, though.
What you do is, to avoid harm, no. It's if you're hit, then you apply a modifier for the endure injury.
All right.
Okay. Forbes, a 12. You avoid the worst of it, but I decide if you end up in a bad spot, if you lose something, or you partially sustain harm. I think that you still, you're going to sustain harm. Ooh, so does Burnaby. So they did. I mean, these guys sprung this ambush off on you quite well. You know what I'm going to do is I'm going to bump it down, back down to a harm of 1 from each of them. So then what I need each of you guys to do is to each roll a endure injury, and you're going to have a modifier of -1 from the harm.
All right.
And neither of you guys are wearing armor, so we don't worry about that. Let's see what happens here. 19 for Burnaby. Holy shit. So close. Okay. So, Burnaby, what do we see as you... you're either have been scratched and it doesn't hurt, or you don't take any damage whatsoever.
Yeah, I think I kind of like catch one of their hands, and then the other one knifes at me and kind of scratches me along the arm, and I'm like, I've been hurt worse than this.
Yeah, ruining your suit is all.
Yep.
Okay, unfortunately, Forbes, you do manage to get to one of them manages to connect with you. You take a serious wound. So if you go to your second page of your character sheet, you have been stabbed, and we'll say this is it's a stab like right around the side, so right like nothing vital, thankfully, but you've got a stab in the right or left side of your body.
Okay.
Okay.
I will offer that I do have the gritted teeth advantage.
Nice, which means you do not suffer the penalty that comes from that.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So then, guys, which of you would like to make a move next?
Probably Barnaby, right?
I was thinking, so one of the things I was thinking is it seems like going into a shady part of the neighborhood, I wouldn't necessarily always carry a pistol with me,
Yep.
but that I might in this situation.
I totally buy that, yes. I'm
In
okay
which
with
case-
you carrying a pistol with you at all times in here.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're like not. This isn't a very racist time that we're playing in. A white man, making his way around Istanbul. I don't think anyone would look askance at you carrying around a pistol.
Yep.
I mean, not
All
like
right.
Wild West style, but like
Yeah.
discreetly. Yeah, that's fine.
Mm-hmm. Concealed.
Okay, so what are you
All right.
doing then?
Then I'm gonna.
So if we're
Well, they already got me, so I'm not gonna shoot into the air to try to clear him out. I'm gonna shoot at him, I think,
Mm-hmm.
okay, so this is
which I think is engage in combat.
yeah, and then we look at your revolver attack. So what you can do is at 1 ammo, without having to reload, 1 ammo is to just shoot and do a harm of 3. Overkill is like blazing away. It unloads the entire pistol, but it does 4 harm.
Well, I actually get to do 4 harm automatically with my seasoned marksman deadshot ability.
Oh man!
Any harm you deal with a firearm is considered +1 harm. So I can do combat shooting and do 4.
Nice.
Colonel.
Okay.
I know, this is what I'm good at. So,
Right.
Okay. So it only costs 1 harm to do the combat shooting then. So why don't you go ahead, make your roll, and then describe for us what happens here. 17. So you inflict your full damage and you avoid counterattack. So I can tell you that will be enough to kill one of them outright.
yeah, so the one that just stabbed me, I kind of reach down with my arm back behind and whip out the pistol
Yep.
and just put it right up to his chest and bam.
Ah, okay. Oh, he jerks and drops down. Forbes, what is your action? Or
Now,
move?
was I correct that the colonel gave me a plus on this coming move, right?
Yep.
+2 for engage in
do.
combat.
So I think the colonel cries out, in alarm, just in time for me to get a jump on the ones in front of me.
Okay.
But the guy behind me is the one that stuck me in the side.
Yeah, love
So
it.
it didn't affect the guy behind me. He got me, but I've got a pretty good. I got enough time to draw my sidearm, my concealed sidearm, and fire it in time at the guy
Go
in front.
right ahead. So are you
Alright.
combat shooting or overkill?
I think, and it's 3 damage or 4 damage. Is that the
That's right. So the number in the square brackets, that is the harm that's inflicted, and the other one, the ammo, is how much ammo it uses. So overkill will empty your pistol. Combat shooting is just
and the damage is a modifier? It's a modifier or no?
no. The damage is what you
Doesn't
inflict.
count as a modifier,
Yeah,
right? Okay.
the game is like a lot of these story games. The game is entirely player facing.
Yeah. Yep. I think I'm going to go with the regular shot.
Okay, so go ahead and make an engage in combat move, please,
All right, and add 2, right?
and add 2 to it. Yes.
Yeah, and that 2 for mine.
Sweet. Oh,
Oh no!
Well, it's easy. He just got stabbed. So
Okay.
despite the colonel's, I'm feeling good about it. The colonel calls out a warning.
Yep.
I confidently draw my revolver, what 10 years in the Royal Dragoons will do. And but then I take this blade in the side and everything
Okay.
goes awry.
So what happens is you draw your pistol out and you fire it, but it's as you're sort of bringing it up, I'm making a move here. He knocks the gun out of your hand. It skitters to the ground and goes away.
Cool.
So you're facing two guys with knives who have not, and you've lost your gun. Burnaby, you see this out of the corner of your eye, and you're just like, well, how do you react?
Fucking journalists, man.
Okay, so now I'm going to make a move, guys, and both of them. So the guy engaged with you is going to try and stab you, Burnaby, and the two are going on you, Forbes. Would each of you please make an avoid harm check or move?
And I don't have any effects because of my gritted teeth.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah. So if it does apply, it will just modify it after the fact. I don't know if the character sheet automatically tracks that stuff. An 11. You avoid the worst of it. Okay. And yeah, so both you guys. All right. So both of you guys are going to roll against a harm. Well, actually, I'll say both against a harm. No. Because of the gang up, Forbes, would you make an endure injury against a harm of 1 for me, please? And Burnaby, I think your gun has jammed. I think when you fired it off in there too, is so close to him that you've caught a bit of fabric or something. So when you pull it back again, the cylinder is jammed. You would need to sort of act under pressure to get it to clear out again if you're going to use that again. Okay, a 10. I'm going to inflict another serious wound on you. So another one catches you, and this one is a slash across the back. Forbes. Ooh. Okay, then back to you guys. Who would like to make a move next?
Well, I think what I'm going to do, which is I'm going to go for the knife of the one who went down and bring it up in kind of like a fighting position, ready to
Get okay. So I think that's that's an act under pressure, I think.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
That's kind of what I was thinking.
What I'd also let you do, if you want a pistol whip with this thing, so a punch, a kick, or a tear is 1 harm. I'd let you pistol whip for 2. Because an edged weapon does 2. Here's the 2 attacks with it, so I didn't actually load it. Edge weapons, you can either cut, slice, or stab for 2, or edge at the throat for 0. You're in control of the target until they break free. This is the proverbial.
Okay. What I'm wondering is if I can know how much health this guy actually has, or is that
No.
no?
You know that the last one went down dead with 4 harm.
With 4 harm.
Yeah.
So the question is 3 gonna be enough? I think what I'm gonna do is go for it. I'm gonna try to pistol whip with the pistol, and I'm gonna use one of my edges from Officer to do aim for the head and get engage in combat deals +1 harm.
Nice.
So that I'll do 3 harm if I connect.
Okay, so go ahead.
Nice.
So this guy, you try to turn the pistol up at him. So I'm stepping on your narration here, but you put the pistol at him, you pull the trigger, and it kind of like charge it. It kind of it doesn't go off. It's jammed. He kind of and you like step forward and smash the butt of the pistol in his face, and he drops down unconscious.
Yep.
Forbes, what are you doing for your move?
How much damage does my dagger do?
That is 2 on a cut, slice, or stab, or 0 for that edge at the throat. If you grab 1, but so if you wanted to grab someone and be like, let me out here, kind of thing.
So
The difficulty is you are outnumbered right now.
Right. I think I'm going to try that. I mean, my revolver just got knocked away.
Okay.
I'm in bad straits. I've wounded twice.
Yeah.
So I'm not in GI Joe mode here. I'm in survival mode.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So I'm going to try to I draw my dagger and I'm going to try to get a hold of one and see if I can't use him to my advantage as a shield in that way too. So I'm going to try the edge at the throat.
Okay. Go ahead.
All right.
Let's engage in combat then, please.
Okay. And at this point, my advantage really comes into play because I'd be at -2 with those two wounds.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. Yeah.
So it's a big factor here.
Okay. And
Oh,
oh boy.
I've been too long out of the military. Too long.
You know, what I'm gonna say is you're knocked out.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that. Hold on, I looked at the wrong thing here. Your attack doesn't go as anticipated. You might be subject to bad luck, miss your target, or pay a high price for your assault. I make a move. You know what? I'm just gonna. They're gonna try and stab you again. So give me another avoid harm check,
Okay.
please. You as you go in, they were ready for you. They've got the numbers on you. So let's see.
I'm bleeding badly at this point.
Yeah. So for those who are maybe curious, once you suffer 4 serious wounds, and then the next one becomes a critical wound, and the next one after that, you die.
Okay. No modifier on this, right?
No modifiers, no.
Okay.
Come on. 13. You avoid the worst of it, so I'm still going to need you to make a check against endure harm with a -1.
Endure injury? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Endure injury, sorry.
The -1.
Come on.
Trouble.
Oh, no. So this is where you're knocked
-1
out.
got me.
Yeah, I'm just going to say, so you go in to try and, you get your knife out, you go in, the other one sort of pushes you to the side, and then smashes you in the back of the head, and you drop down completely unconscious.
Now, just for our, is it true, because I thought this was very interesting about this. This is like a classic, this is maybe the most classic story game, nugget right here is, I think this is up to the player, right? The injury is overwhelming, and the player chooses whether they die.
Oh, you choose, yeah. Oh, yeah, no, it is.
So which is classic because, in a trad game, what player is going to choose to die? I mean, that's like a very unusual. I mean, if I had to explain one of the differences of story games and trad games, it's a player choosing that their character dies.
You're right, yeah. So what do you think? Do you think you're knocked out? Do you think you get a critical wound, or do you die?
Right. I mean, this is too soon to die.
Okay.
I'm into a grisly death, but it's too soon. Too soon.
Okay.
That's a tough call. I like both.
Make a decision. I'm making it for you. Come on.
We'll go with knocked out.
Okay. All right. So then, Burnaby, you turn around, and these two guys who were facing Forbes now turn and charge in on you. I need you to avoid harm for me, please.
All right, avoid harm. Seems like an endure injury with some penalties is coming.
So my endure injury of -1, please.
-1. Ooh.
So I think now you are bloodied. So you're taking a serious wound as well. It seems like the more capable of the ambushers are the ones that were facing Mr. Forbes. Your turn now. What are you doing?
Okay.
You still have one more edge from Officer too, right?
Yep. So I think I'm gonna do just like I did last time and try to pistol whip one of them with my edge to get bonus damage.
Okay. Go right ahead.
Does my injury, my serious wound means
-1 to your roll then.
Okay. Engage in combat, -1. Oh, look at that. No problem.
So, that is, you inflict damage and avoid any counterattacks. So you're going to take another one of these guys down. What does that look like?
It's the time practiced maneuver like I did last time. I just kind of come up. It's like a right cross, except I've got a big heavy pistol in my hand and just whack him in the face.
Nice, boom. He's down like a ton of bricks, and I think that the last one will turn and run.
Can I hold my pistol on him and try to do knife at the throat, but with a pistol?
No, because it's my turn to do a move.
Okay.
So he will turn. What you can do though is you could try and act under pressure and catch him.
Yes, then I will do that.
Okay. So you turn and go running after him. So go ahead and give me give us a act under pressure move, please.
All right, with the same -1?
Yes.
Yes.
15, yeah. So you catch him. So you go, what does it look like as you go racing through here and take this guy down?
Well, he turns around immediately and starts going. I kind of look a glance at Forbes and then decide, nope, I need to get the bad guy. And so I go racing after him and go just full on kind of tackle him to the ground.
Okay. So he hits the ground, and we'll say that you, what are you trying to do? Like knock him unconscious and then interrogate him later, or what's the plan here?
Well, I'm thinking that he probably doesn't know that my pistol is jammed. I've been hitting people with it, but it's not obvious. So I could hold it in his face and say, you're going to come quietly with me or you're going to die a loud death.
That's okay. Why don't you give me an influence other move, and I will give you a +1 to that. So don't do any modifiers because you're a wound.
No modifiers. Yeah.
His hands slowly go up like, Okay, so let's say that everyone is together. We'll put Vanberry and Dr. Stoker. You guys have had very little to do in the last little bit. What do you think's happening with you, or has been happening with you guys? Mr. Vanberry, is there anything you wanted to do before you left town?
Nope. I think I'll just need to get across into town there.
Okay. James, can I get you to move your mic just a little bit closer? You're a little quiet for me. Okay. So you are maybe meeting with, what do you think Dr. Stoker and Mr. Vanberry are doing as Colonel Burnaby, Mr. Forbes, and their hostage show up? Well, you picture you guys are in some kind of grand hotel room getting yourselves ready. You're supposed to be leaving on the train tomorrow.
Yeah, I think I just met with the doctor. Maybe we had dinner when I was gaining this information, and now I'm back and packing for the trip.
Yeah. So this is where, if Dr. Stoker brought back that information about the... let's see here. Oh, yeah. This is where either Mr. Vanberry, you could, say, build on what Dr. Stoker has introduced here about what he learned about Akeem Bay, or you could, draw on you could investigate, you could draw on your network of contacts, see if there's any further information you could learn. Like the way that the story, again, is the game sort of develops is through the moves that you guys take to sort of advance the story along, and this isn't like a traditional like Call of Cthulhu type adventure where there's a clear trail of clues that lead you to a conclusion. And this is not just a cult, this is the Dracula Dossier thing in general. There's lots of ways, there's information and clues out there, and there's lots of easy ways to get access to them.
Right.
Do you have anything further you wanted to do, Mr. Vanberry, or just waiting to see what happens?
Yeah, just see.
Okay. All right. So let's. Then what we see is Mr. Vanberry is kind of sitting and thinking. Dr. Stoker has finished telling him about what he has encountered, and that's when Colonel Burnaby and Mr. Forbes come staggering in, quite bloodied. So, what happens next, guys?
Well, immediately, Dr. Stoker will run over and attempt to provide medical attention to Mr. Archibald.
Sure. So then that is hold on.
I mean, I have battlefield medicine, but I don't know if I have better medicine when I'm not necessarily on the battlefield, or I guess you could consider a hotel room kind of like the battlefield.
There is a... Hold on here. It's the way that we deal with this. The wounds require care. Oh, Anna says hi. So give me a second. I want to read over this again here. Well,
Okay, Steve James. James said he had to go.
oh, yeah, no problem. Okay. See you, James. Okay. So Mr. Van Buren will be sitting very quiet for the next 20 minutes. Give me a sec here, guys. There's...
As long as the doctor didn't have to go. From Forbes's
Yeah.
perspective.
Sorry, gotta go.
No, Jeff, no.
Okay.
Maybe you'll be rethinking that grim death.
Seriously.
Okay. Let's see here.
I mean, I guess we could just use what. When you.
Oh, it's okay. So it's considered acting under pressure. If you don't have a first aid kit, you take -2 to stabilize the wound. So I'm assuming you do. What you'd be rolling here. Let's see here. First aid. The threat might be... So the first aid, when a person stabilizes... What the heck is going on here? Sorry, and again, folks, for those listening at home, this is... it does require a pretty substantial shift in the way you think about interacting with a fiction in a story game, so sometimes causes me to stumble a bit. I don't quite understand how this... let's see here. Seriously critical wound is acting under pressure.
What page are you on?
I'm on 123 right now, just reading under the what's it called? Acting under pressure.
Yeah, see, acting under pressure is coolness.
I'm just trying to figure out what the difference is between a stable wound and a non-stabilized wound. So I don't quite understand.
Whereas my battlefield medicine lets me use my reason.
Oh, nice.
And so it's choose...
Okay, so... the way it works is you suffer multiple serious wounds. The wound requires treatment with first aid before it can start healing. And prior to this, it inflicts any PC with a -1 on all rolls. So it's the penalty is what you lose when you have... when you treat it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. You can temporarily negate those penalties by drinking alcohol or taking painkillers. And then when you make your roll, if you don't get a 15 or higher, there may be something else that's happened. Like you might need to keep the thing from... to keep it stabilized, you may need to get serious medical treatment, like in a hospital. Or they may be doped up on painkillers. Or you use up all your pain, supplies. So we kind of interpret it based on what we think has happened.
And you saw that first aid treatment of serious and critical wounds on 125?
25. Where are you looking? Sorry, I don't know.
Right column, top right page 125, I think, in the GM core books. It says first aid. It's right above keep it together.
Yeah, providing first aid to another is acting under pressure. Yeah, and then you take a -2 if you don't have the first aid kit.
And it does say the character does not need to roll for first aid unless there's pressure or they don't have a first aid kit.
Oh, if you're distracting surroundings or dealing with immediate threats. If not, don't need to roll. It simply works. Oh, perfect. Okay, so then describe first, Doctor, what's the treatment that you're offering these guys as they come in all bloodied up?
Are they both wounded?
Yep.
One more so than the other.
Archibald Forbes though is a bit of a meat grinder.
Okay. Yeah, he's He's dashing to his medical kit that he had packed and ready to go, and he's just whipping it all out. He gets Frederick to sit down in the chair, and then he's got Archibald on the bed, and he's laid out sort of a sheet, and he's treating each of his wounds. How many wounds do you have?
I have 3.
So do I just roll once, or do I roll for each?
You don't need to worry about rolling. Rolling is only when you are under pressure.
Oh, okay.
Or when it's time sensitive or whatnot. So yeah, you just use your, you get a chance to bandage them up. What are you doing with this prisoner that you guys took?
We're gonna interrogate him, right? And that was my plan.
Yeah.
Okay.
And Kevin, I wanted to ask you about we didn't go farther into the scene, but maybe a roll to see if I recovered my revolver, because I was unconscious. I don't know if the Colonel carried me unconscious, or whether the Colonel would have thought about my lost weapon.
I'm not sure what move that would be, so I'm fine with him just recovering it.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm not gonna take I could make a GM move to take it away from you, but I'm not gonna do that.
Okay. I can just slap you awake, and you can think, "Oh, I need to get it."
Yeah.
I might even lunge for it. You're like, it's over. It's over.
Okay.
Calm down, journalist. Calm down. I'm taking care of it.
Okay. Now let's see here. Okay, so in this one, so you've treated them up, and this guy is now in, how do you think you've secured him here?
Well, I'll just have my pistol on him until after Dr. Stoker is done, and I can vacate the chair and have him sit down and, tie his hands behind the back type thing.
Okay. Okay, his hands are tied behind him. You have him secured. Now, what are you guys going to do? Your stab wounds aren't nearly as bad as they thought, or they appeared at first, Mr. Forbes. And Colonel Burnaby, it's just, what do you think your injury was?
I think I got kind of like, maybe in the arm, if I was shooting with my right, I got kind of cut worse than I thought along the left, and that was,
So yeah, so he binds it up for you. You don't need to worry. You're not going to suffer any persisting injury or anything like that. What happens next, guys? This guy is dressed again like I'm assuming you've taken it off now too. He's got dark hair, dark eyes, and the kind of swarthy skin that is favored in that region.
In Turkey, you mean?
Well, I'm saying that region.
Okay.
Yeah, you guys have to do moves.
Well, then
if you
I'm going to try Russian first.
Okay.
I'm going to say, who hired you to attack us?
Well, what we want to do is to interpret the scene. We want to figure out what you're doing. It sounds to me like you're trying to read that person by using Russian, right?
Yeah, read that person. I'm starting with Russian, and then I'll move to Turkish.
Okay. So let's talk just for a moment here, guys. So there is a move called helping or hindering, which is where someone else in the scene can try and do something to assist with the main character. So if you can come up with a way in the fiction of how you might help them, you make a roll with the appropriate attribute, and then there may be a modifier.
I will defer to you, Dr. Stoker, only because we're right after this whole thing. So
also, Jeff hasn't really, he's patiently sitting while the whole last scene played out. So
that too, but I'm wounded, and I think I'm laid up. I'm propped up, kind of watching it with one eye open. Okay. But I'm still getting my feet underneath me.
Okay.
Right, and okay, so how would I assist in the interrogation? That's.
Well, again, I'm not saying you have to.
Thing, right? Yeah.
If you can think of something in the fiction, like a lot of the way that these games are supposed to sort of roll out is that we focus very much on what's happening in the story, and then find mechanical ways of interacting with that stuff. Like what we did with what Colonel Burnaby is trying to achieve here is to achieve a get some information out of this guy, which is why I suggested it was a move to read a person rather than...
Right. Wait, so is he also injured?
Superficially. Oh, no, he isn't. You didn't hurt him at all, right?
No, I just took him prisoner. I mean, I tackled him, so he's bruised a little bit. Probably.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was gonna say because I could threaten to like not help him until he helps us, but
Well,
he's
it
not really
seems
injured.
like what you could do is you could be Dr. Stoker. Do you speak Russian in addition to whatever
Yes.
other languages? Okay, so you could. I'm wondering if you could, because what I was thinking was trying to figure out if these guys are agents of the Tsar or not, basically as part of our concern, or if they're working for Turks. So I was going to try speaking in Russian, but we could have. I
just don't see Dr. Stoker as like the torturing or the intimidating type. You
Sure.
know,
Well,
like,
what I'm saying is, it seems like it would be more about kind of reading him than torturing him at this point,
right.
right? So it's like, if there's a way, I don't know if Dr. Stoker's particularly good at, like, close analysis of the face to see if he's lying or something.
You can just listen in. I mean, if I'm fine with him making a intuition roll, and we'll use that to judge whether you're helping or hindering.
Right, sure.
If what you say in fiction is, like, as an example, is that Colonel could have said, like, listen, you speak Russian, listen to what we're talking about, see what see what you hear.
Yeah. Okay, so it's just a flat intuition roll.
Yes, please.
To see if I am able to help.
Yeah.
There it is.
9. His interference has unintended consequences. I make a move.
Interesting.
Okay. All right. So then, how does this scene play out with Colonel Burnaby then?
So I'm gonna do, like I said, start with Russian, see if he responds, then see if he responds to Turkish.
Okay.
And try to see, like I said, I'm trying to figure out if he's an agent of the Tsar or if he's working for the Turks. Or
Love it. Go ahead and give us a read a person move, please.
Read a person. Oh, shit.
So what the result is you accidentally reveal your own intention to the person you're trying to read. So tell me what these intentions are.
Well, he definitely knows. I'm assuming from the accent he can tell that I'm British.
I can tell you what's happening. What my move's going to be is that he has been cutting open the ropes that have been holding him. While you guys have been receiving treatment and someone's been watching them, he's been slowly getting them loose. He's about to make a move to get the fuck out of here, to bolt out of here.
Yeah, so I think what he...
So what do you think you say? Which means he could have been listening in on you or something like that.
Yeah, okay, so that makes sense. If he was listening in to the original, to what I said to Stoker, if I said something like, we need to know if he's... we need to know who he's working for, especially if he's working for the Russians, and that he...
I think you dropped the name Ternova too, right?
Okay, yeah. So that they don't... especially if he's working for the Russians and we still need to get to turnover or something like that.
Yeah. Okay, so then what's going to happen is when you go in to talk to this guy, you say a word in Russian, and then what he suddenly is going to do is spin and smash the chair into you to try and knock you down so he can run. So, Stoker, you're walking there and you're both kind of like, whoa, as this guy suddenly is not locked up or not tied up. So would you give me give us a avoid harm move, please?
11.
11. So you avoid the worst of it. Sustain a partial harm. So I don't think you take any injury from this, but it does knock you off balance. I'm going to give you a -2 to your next action against this guy because he surprised you guys so much. Yes, he didn't actually knock you down, so you're not stuck trying to get up. But he now leaps across the bed and he's running for the balcony. to try and get out. Do you guys wish to try anything before he gets out there?
Yeah, I'll try and act under pressure and draw my pistol.
Oh, yeah, I'd buy that. Okay, so... Go... Are you trying to shoot him, or are you trying to... I'm trying to decide if it's an act under pressure. Yeah, let's do that. I like that.
Why don't I...
Yeah,
So,
I buy that
Why don't
more
I
than...
say, how about I shout, don't let him get away? And that's the impetus to pull out the pistol and
Sure,
and start
yeah.
shooting.
I think you had one edge left over from the fight with this guy anyway,
And
right?
I think I did too.
Yeah,
In which
so-
case I can give you
What, +1, I think?
+2 to the engage in combat roll.
Yeah, so let's do act under pressure, see if you can get that gun out in time, and then if so, I'll let you engage in combat.
Okay, cool.
Okay?
Oh, here we go. Coolness.
10.
Ooh.
You do it, but you hesitate, are delayed, or must deal with a complication. Give me an engage in combat roll.
Let's see what happens.
Yeah, and you get
So this
+2
one's
to
at
this.
+2.
Yep.
This one's at +2, yeah.
Good thing, because it counters out my -2.
Yeah.
Holy crow! What? A 0?
Oh no, you put in plus.
You put the plus in, that's why. Remember it? You
But
can't
it's
put
a
plus in roll
13.
20. So it's actually
right.
14, 15,
It's a 13.
17. I think it's a 17, isn't it?
Yeah.
No, because it's the +2 and the -2 cancel each other out, so it's just the rolled.
Oh,
two
yeah.
dice.
Right. It's
Yeah,
a
yeah.
13.
13.
A 13, okay. 13 is you inflict damage, but at a cost. Yeah, and this I think you blow through all of your ammo, blazing away as this guy's running towards the window. Pa, 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 pa! And then what happens is you hear this smash as he goes through, and you hear a thump, and then a scream of a woman from outside. And when you guys, the two of you, run to the side, and Forbes, you come running in, bandaged up, like, what the hell's happening? And you guys look down, and there's a slowly expanding pool of blood around from where this guy's fallen. He's wrapped in almost like a funeral shroud of the drapes that hung down from the thing, and your shot hit him square in the forehead. He was looking at you, I guess, when he was running, and you hit him square between the eyes. So great shot, but you've now got a panic in the street as people are just like, ah,
And sort of unintended consequences. Yeah.
Yeah.
Damn it, Colonel. What's going on here? It looks like we better depart town a little sooner than we'd planned.
Yeah, I think we ought to be in a rush to get to Ternova.
Okay. So then I think what we will end our session with, guys, is all of you, I think maybe like Burnaby looking down. We see this shot from, looking down up at you guys, looking from the balcony. You're packed, Mr. Forbes, yes. And you, Mr. Stoker, or Dr. Stoker, yes.
Definitely.
I best we catch the next train then. And we see you guys all, getting the final scene of the session is you guys all getting onto the train, getting ready to depart for Adrianopole to where you're going to be shortly afterwards. You'll be disembarking and then meeting up with the Bashi Bazooks, who will be taking you up and over the Shipka Pass. So,
I want to add something.
Please do, yeah.
You see on the train, you see Dr. Stoker, as they're sitting on the train, he's got his pistol in his lap and he's staring at it. I don't think he's ever killed a man.
Then you know what? Let's do this. I love that. Would you kindly give me, or give us, an keep it together roll?
Nice.
This is you exercising self-control to keep yourself, see whether you're, you're
Traumatic
shocked.
experience.
Yeah. 13 to keep it together. The effort to resist instills a condition which remains with you until you've had time to recuperate. And I don't think you have with the rush to the station, so this will give you a -1 in situations where the condition would be a hindrance. Examples are angry, sad, scared, guilt-ridden, obsessed, distracted, or haunted by the experience at a later time. Guilt-ridden seems what you've described.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
I think he's guilt-ridden. Yeah,
So
absolutely.
please put, I think, is it under the character sheet that you have that?
There's a disadvantages thing.
Not disadvantages. This is a...
On page 2,
Stability.
there's a stability.
Stability. Yeah.
Oh,
So we're all composed until you kill someone by shooting him in the forehead.
Yeah.
so I'm what I put uneasy.
Yes. And then that's only when, like, once that resolves, you will you'll get that back.
Okay.
Okay.
And I'm only uneasy. Oh, right. I'm guilt-ridden.
Guilt-ridden. You can tell us when that would actually play in.
Yeah. Okay. Perfect.
And I still have 2 holds that I can bank at a later point. Okay, so let's just quickly talk about XP, guys.
I was going to say too. I think Forbes is laid up. So he's trying to get comfortable in the train, and it's just impossible. Like, this is no bed.
Yeah.
This is an 1800s rickety train, and he's grimacing like with every track. Like that.
Yeah.
Thunk, thunk.
It's 160 kilometers to Adrianople too.
Burnaby might say something like, "It's a little different than the ride from London to Bath, isn't it?"
and he with squinty eyes, he glares at the Colonel, but knowing he owes the Colonel his life, so he tries to force a smile in the pain of of feeling every track.
Love it. Okay, sorry, I should have given you guys opportunities to use the outros. Anything with Colonel Burnaby as you guys are on the train?
I don't think in particular. He's probably wincing a little bit from the wound. It's still, bandaged but not entirely healed.
Yeah.
But I think we might see him. I don't know if he's wearing he's probably not wearing his cavalry saber yet, but he's got it. It's kind of conspicuous.
We see him stuff it up in the luggage, and it's with the stuff that's there.
The stuff that's there.
Does he maybe spare a look outside the train to see if it, to make sure that no one is observing them or anything?
Yeah, I think Burnaby will check to make sure that we're...
So then as you go and you spare that look outside, and as you go and sit down, and then you have your exchange with Mr. Forbes, we see the train begin to pass away, and stepping out from a crowd from under the shadow of one of those platforms, the eaves above the platforms, we see that same hawk-faced man. Looks down, and turns and makes his way back into Istanbul. So someone has been watching you guys. I've used one of my moves. Okay, then let's talk about XP. So the way that XP works in this is, and here's something that we will use next session. Now that you guys have met each other's characters, a dramatic hook is a player request for their character to take a certain action during the story. During each game session, each player should have 2 dramatic hooks for their character. At the beginning of the first session, we've already set that up. That was your the drive I set for you. What these are is like, you should complete and then whatever. So like, you should finish something, you should reveal something, you should tell something, you should visit something, you should complete, you should confront, you should investigate, you should develop. So it's a thing, and it's not from you as the player, it's what other people are suggesting to you. Once you fulfill the dramatic hook, then you get 1 XP for that. So, an example they give is like, you should visit the place where your kidnapper took you. You should reveal your infidelity to your wife. So, like, an example of what you could do is you could say, you know what, Jeff, that was really cool the way you played his guilt-ridden nature. You should discuss the consequence of taking his first life with someone else.
Right.
And then
and someone else would give that suggestion.
Exactly.
So I try to come up with ones for other people.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So let's hear. First off, have we discovered anything new about the conspiracy? I think we have. I think you guys knew that.
No doubt.
Yeah. Have we learned anything new about our characters? I'd say yes. First session.
For sure.
Yeah.
I think the bar was low on that, because the first session you didn't know anything, so we're on our way.
Have we challenged ourselves?
Well, I mean, challenged ourselves. I mean, because certainly we got challenged as Forbes sits there trying not to bleed on the train cushion.
Yeah.
I think so. I mean, we're pursuing a lead into the outback. That's obviously drawn the ire of somebody.
Yep.
Yeah.
Did anyone play up their drive?
Well, I will say, did we do this about other people or ourselves?
No, yourselves.
Okay. I mean, like, him camping out in the lobby, I think, like, is trying to uncover the truth.
I think he played up that drive, yeah. What about Burnaby?
I kind of don't think so. My drive is desire for adventure, and while we are sort of going off into the hinterland, that wasn't really my push to do that at all, right? That was kind of all given to us.
Yep.
So I think that's a fair assessment.
Okay, and then Stoker, your drive was that you have compassion for all mankind.
That's a stretch on that one. You did heal me. I'll try to. You know what? I'm going to try to speak up for you, Stoker. At least he wrapped me and treated me. How about that? I don't know.
Well, I did for you guys, and then I think that it was sort of like, and I don't think that he even at all intended to shoot.
Well, and it was
that's
on
not,
Burnaby's
that's
order.
not the way the scene went. Yeah, Burnaby ordered him, don't let him get away, and he sort of, his instinct was to pull his revolver, and when he said that, he fired, and I think that it's just like,
so it was an accident.
maybe that was
Dr.
just
Stoker.
training. Well, I think it was more like combat training kicking in. Like the military has trained him to use the revolver, and targets, right? Shoot him in the head, shoot him in the heart. Like that is just like,
okay.
I think it was just instinct.
Yeah, so I think, while you didn't necessarily achieve the drive, it certainly played a role in, in what was happening. So why don't we say that each of you guys, see, Archibald, Forbes, and George Stoker, you get 4 XP each, and Frederick, you get 3 XP. Although I think your willingness to dive, you know what, I'm going to give you 4 as well, because I think your willingness to dive into this thing without even checking back with the Foreign Office, that definitely shows a drive for adventure, because you didn't bother to check with your bosses in London to see whether you needed this or not, or you should go. So, yeah, 4 XP, and the reason that matters, guys, when you hit 5 XP, you then get to make a advancement, and those are things like you can increase 1 active attribute by 1, you can increase 1 passive attribute by 1, you can increase 1 up to a max of 4, but you can only do that once. Or you can select a new advantage. That's when you hit 5 XP. So after next session, we will have that too. So great. All right. So then, guys, for those listening at home, thanks so much for joining us for session 1 of the, what do you call it? Stoker First Blood, using the Kult Divinity Lost rules. And someone had pointed out in chat that I've got a typo in the name of the description of the video, so I need to correct that afterwards. So this is our first time using Kult as well, too, guys. What do we? Oh, you got a book? You see, you got a book?
I just got to run.
Oh yeah, no problem, Jeff. So we'll check in with you afterwards. Thanks. Have a good weekend. Sean and Arlen, what did you guys think of the rules?
I thought it went pretty well for our first foray. I mean, this is a game. It's roughly about as different as you get I think there's games that for example, like I would compare FFG Star Wars, which has story elements, but it plays as a trad game. And I think this is the inverse, that this has trad elements, but it plays as a story game.
Yep.
So it's very different. And I thought it went pretty well. I thought you did a good job, Kevin. And, applying a very different, maybe not a very different, but substantially different way of doing things. I thought it went pretty well.
Thank you. Arnold, what'd you think of it?
No, I thought it was good. I thought it was fun. When I played some solo Ironsworn before, and one of the things that I learned from that, because that's also a story game, is that it seems like one of the principles of story games is that story happens when things go off the rails, and you kind of have to be prepared for that, right? That's one of the things that you just have to accept with this sort of game. I think it worked here really well. I mean, it was the kind of whole last kind of hour or so of our play was basically based off of a couple of failed rolls that led to some other crazy stuff, that led to some other stuff, that led to exactly that story happened when it went off the rails.
Well, even some of the I can tell you that the GM moves that I introduced in there too, those were things that were not planned. Those were not pre-planned sort of segues or whatnot, which I really, really like. I have a rough idea. I mean, this is one of the reasons why I'm obsessed with this Dracula Dossier campaign, is because it's I love the idea that it's improvised, and it gives you the tools you need for it to improvise with it. But it's really incredible how how much fun it is to just. like when we first sat down to get this thing going, and I was kind of setting the table with it. I'm like, okay, you got this meeting, and then we just like, well, let's just see what happens in this scene. That's the thing. I think the appeal for these types of games for me is the play to see what happens thing, because like just tossing the scene of like, okay, well, there's going to be a party, and I can think of reasons for all of you guys to be there, and let's start engaging with the rules and see what happens here. It was some of those early failures. Like, it's not. There's a reason that your hold that I got from you, Forbes, at the outset was that guy going into the station, that the what do you call it? The what's it called? The
telegraph office.
Telegraph. Thank you.
Yeah.
Could my brain power is expanded from the end of the weekekend. But that, yeah, because like
telegraph very often. That word's a little rare now. So.
It is, yeah. Very rarely am I sending shit by telegraph or carrier pigeon.
It might feel like it, but no.
Yeah. So it was interesting from like I liked the idea of like, oh, okay, I got to find a way to tie this into something that you had done, and a way of also advancing the story too, you know. And then it gave us it gave meaning to some of those like off camera or like, you know, no players involved kind of like cutscenes that I do sometimes in campaigns, which gives you the players us the I guess the foundation for when something goes wrong. Your characters won't necessarily know it, but your players will know, like, fuck, this is building on, you know, whatever we introduced from before. That again was, like you said, Arlen, introduced because of the results on a dice roll. I like that. I mean, you still were pretty badass in that combat scene as well, too.
Yeah, I thought that went well. I mean, I thought it was a really good balance. I mean, you know, so I've played a handful of PBTA games, and so this kind of inverts things in a sense that in PBTA the moves are PC specific, and in this game the moves are PC general. Like, everyone has the same moves. Yeah. And instead it uses the advantages to differentiate. And I thought that went well. I liked it.
Yeah, City Miss is somewhat like that too, where there's a bunch of general ones, and then you can have specific.
Well, there are a couple of other that do, like the superhero one, Worlds in Peril, has like a whole set of generic ones, and then like this, you get like one or two specific ones based on your kind of superhero nature type thing. So I think there are a couple that do that. But yes, a lot of the PBTA games do. You have like a specific set of moves based on like which archetype you choose and things like that. And this is a different.
I think this is closer to my sensibilities. Like, when I haven't run any strict Power by the Apocalypse games yet, but I don't. That's the thing I chafe on. That is, it feels a little too much like it's forcing the whole narrative through a very specific set of, you know, move lenses. Yeah. Whereas in this one, like, it does feel a lot looser. The fact that everyone has the same list to go from is something I liked about City of Mist quite a bit. And the GM moves, I like how intuitive it is. That, like, when I'm looking at the list there, I'm like, oh, this is all what I would have expected to be able to do with me being able to pull some GM bullshittery.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I think what the PBTA does really well is something very specific. I'll give you the example of a game that the only PBTA game I'm planning on running at some point on the list is Bedlam Hall, where you play a butler and a staff of a rich guy, and then hijinks occurs. Yeah. It's very specific. I mean, that's what you're going to do. Yeah. You're not going to go off and go to India. Like, you're going to be in that house doing that. Yeah. And PBTA does a very nice job of that, whereas Kult's not like that. Kult's a more general horror game in a big setting, blah blah blah. So yeah, I totally agree that I think this works very well for.
You know what's interesting too is initially I was thinking about making your characters a little higher, like with more experience points. I'm like, well, is this really going to feel like badass spies and whatnot, the way that Nice Black Agents allows you to feel? And I changed my mind for two reasons. For one, because I was like, well, that's not necessary for this particular adventure. There's nothing that's coming up in this that is necessarily going to be like, this is why why this adventure is good, is because you're playing godlike super spies. Yep. And secondly, also because all the characters in all the pre-gens in the in one of the like adventure collections in Teroticum and other tales, they're all starting characters. Huh. And it's like, okay, well, if the game designers don't, and like you guys, it felt like the person who had a bigger bonus to violence, like Burnaby seemed to have a lot more aptitude for combat than what Forbes did, right?
Oh, no doubt.
Yeah.
No doubt.
Yeah.
Well,
I mean,
that's kind of that's kind of a thing because there's sort of multiple layers to that, right? Like I had a better violence stat, but I also had those advantages that only come into play in violent situations, and that was kind of, in some ways, that was an even bigger swing than just having a big violence stat. Is that I like that I did +1 harm when shooting, or that I got the officer bonus.
Yeah.
And the combination was particularly big. Add them all together, and next thing you know, you're like kicking ass.
I love having the officer thing give Forbes a bonus as well too. That's a really neat introduce a bunch of edges. I like the idea of you guys having floating assets you can use in the story too. So that's also something
kind of almost like we talked about with the Star Trek game, the kind of tags or fate tags, and this is sort of this is kind of, I think, an even clever version of that in some ways, where you say like, we don't know what the tag is, but here's how it exists, and when we're ready for it, we'll bring it into the narrative. That's really clever.
I like it. I think it's a very solid system. I was very, I told the guys before we went live that I've been very excited to run this for about 2 weeks now. And this morning I suddenly was hit with a bunch of nerves of like, oh my God, this is a modified setting, a modified set of rules and whatnot. But like, man, was it fun today to run this. Well.
I was going to mention, Kevin, that I know we're not using disadvantages, but you could, the thought hit me, you could keep it in your back pocket.
I am actually. I'm not
Exactly.
starting with the characters. I'm not starting with them having disadvantages, but I am going to incorporate that into when you guys start getting, like when someone gets to the point where they're going to have a real trauma, I might introduce one for Stoker now.
Oh yeah, makes sense.
Yeah, just for the characters as written, I wasn't, but I'm working on a solo thing right now too or a solo or small group one for a modern day version of this, and in that one I would use disadvantages because I think the disadvantages are definitely add a very cool element to it, and it's a really. I've been watching. The next episode's on today, but I've been watching The Outsider. On HBO. It's based on a Stephen King novel of the same name, and it's another one of those Stephen King things where like there's some supernatural thing going on, and we're following the impact of that thing's activities on a group of very interesting characters. Like King does a very good job of fully fleshing out each character. Like there's no forgettable background characters in each of them. Sometimes to a fault, they feel a little like here's my thing, but the thing that was interesting about watching that is like it got me thinking of like, oh, this could be a cult game right here. I don't need to introduce the monster right on. It's just the impact of the monster and the impact of the horrific thing going on on the community that is engaging and entertaining enough, and the slow burn of fear that goes into that is awesome. Nice. Like not necessarily seeing the monster jump out every week.
Yeah,
and. Yeah, it's a really solid game. I'm looking forward to playing, and it does what I like about games, which is it frees me from worrying too much about XP. I can give you guys rewards each session and not worry about it breaking the game. But
I'm sure this is now getting carried away with it. But you could even keep the back pocket is of dark secrets. If something comes out in play that you think would be cool, that you might otherwise, even if there wasn't a dark secret, you might say, okay, Sean, this actually might be really good for your character. You could pull the dark secret mechanic out.
The reason I didn't use dark secrets in this is because that's not what this type of campaign is about. The Kult is a very, like Rules is Written, is a very personal game about these individual characters. It's very much a character study as well as a horror thing. And it's the character's relationship to what they've gone through before. The trouble with Kult, and this is from all the editions, this is from my first edition forward, is that when every character has a dark secret, it can feel silly. Where it's just like, okay, what's the horrific thing that you went through, that blah, blah, blah. So, and that's not really what the Night's Black Agents, or at least Dracula Dossier, isn't about that quest inward. It's about what's going on outside, right?
Yeah.
So that's why I chose not to incorporate that. But the disadvantages I am thinking of incorporating because I like how they interact with the stress rules.
Yep.
But yeah, for like a game like what do you call it? So that was based more on kind of a low or a slow burn kind of like low key slow building horror thing, I would absolutely use that stuff. I would just steer clear of the more extreme things. Like there wouldn't be like I was kidnapped by a fallen angel and tortured and whatever else.
Sure.
It would be something more low key that would be more personal.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Did we end up with any dramatic hooks? I know we talked about it, but I think I've got my drive.
Yeah,
are we going to decide on those at the beginning of next session?
Well, that's what we talked about. You guys doing. You guys are picking those for the next session.
Oh, next session. Okay, so we'll do that next time.
I mean, we can do that in Discord as well too between now and next session. So
true.
Yeah, but cool. All right. Well, then, any closing comments or closing thoughts on Kult?
I don't think so. Other than I got to work on my accent. Other than that,
I thought it was fun. I'm glad you got to do something Dracula Dossier because I've heard about it for like a year now.
And Kevin and I have been on the same page of that the whole time. Like I have also been looking for another system to run Dracula Dossier. Not really actively looking, but on my mind. Like, what else could? Because it's so good. What else could I? Because I'm not really a gumshoe guy either. At least running it. Yeah. And so anyway, so
no,
cool.
It is such a terrific product. Like there's so much cool stuff in there. So and that's actually what now that this first session is done too. I got some work I got to do today, but I'm also going to be thinking about that solo because I want to tie the Hobbs, his characters, that FBI agent he played before too. The thing I've been sort of working on in the background has been an idea of using this in the modern day as sort of a slow build towards a Dracula Dossier thing. So we start with, I know his character, he's interested in revisiting his character, and then we just introduce characters around that as well, and not build it as necessarily a super spies versus Dracula thing, but using, that might be something that you would build towards, but I think there's a really fucking cool campaign, especially with a game like this where we spent so much time in those like chatty scenes. Like there was a lot of, we spent the last bit of the session fighting in combat or playing combat, but we did spend the first chunk of it with us just kind of getting to know each other and getting to lay the land in game, like while playing the game, which I really, really like.
Yeah. Yeah.
So cool. Anyway, for those, this is all lots of post chats. So for those listening at home, thank you so much for joining us for this first session of Kult Divinity Lost Dracula Dossier. As always, if you have any comments, questions, or concerns regarding the session or the game, please don't hesitate to leave a comment in the comment section below, and I will endeavor to reply in a timely fashion. In addition, or alternatively, you can also reach me on Twitter at Dungeon Musings, or you can shoot me an email. My email address is dungeonmusings@gmail.com. In addition, you can also find a link in the description of the video to the Dungeon Musings Discord server, where we have channels dedicated to all the games that we play on the channel. This one, as well as every other campaign, as well as like a Find a Group channel, as well as, there's pictures of our dogs and cats and stuff like that on there as well. So lots of different ways to find other players, to talk about different games, and also to follow the different campaigns that we run on the channel. In addition, there's also a link in the description of the video to something called Heroes Save Villages. That is the charity fundraising campaign that we run on the channel. This is something that benefits the SOS Children's Villages International Charity, and there are a number of rewards that you can claim on there, and including very soon we will have our next raffle. So far, the raffle prize grand prize is going to be a copy of the gold edition of Beadle and Grimm's Eberron Rising from the Last War box set. That product is like a $300 or $350 brand new thing, and you can get it for a very low $25 Canadian raffle ticket, or at least have a chance of winning that. In addition, there's also options for charity camp or sessions, where I can run a charity session for you and your friends, or possibly you and some of my friends. And a bunch of other things, like adding a themed session to to one of our ongoing campaigns, or adding an NPC, or just giving some narrative meta currency to players who may need it, some astonishing fortune or so forth. But last but not least, I want to thank my players. So, absent, unfortunately, is James and Jeff, so thank you to you guys. But Arlen and Sean, thank you so much for playing through the first session of this. I greatly appreciate you sticking around for the post-game debrief of this too. I'm glad to hear that you guys are enjoying this game as much as I am, because I can't wait to play again. So awesome. Then until we see again, last thing I'll say is for those listening at home, thank you again for joining us for the first session or first episode, first chapter of Stoker First Blood. We look forward to seeing you again in 2 weeks' time. Until then, happy gaming.